Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Town Council to order at 7:07. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Appreciate your showing up here tonight. I know we have some limited quarters, so I appreciate everybody working with that. We are definitely mindful of the COVID situation, but up here on the bench, we've tried to keep ourselves separated, and so we tend to take off our masks so that we can talk more clearly. But we appreciate everybody's mindfulness of the whole situation. By way of announcements, we have meetings coming up. Thursday, March 25th is a regular meeting. Thursday, April 8th is a regular meeting. Our election day is April 13th, all day from 7 to 7 at the 3 polling places. And then Thursday, April 22nd is a regular meeting. The regular meetings are being held at 7 o'clock here in this room. Paul, did you have any other announcements?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. The Assessing Department is accepting applications for the elderly and disabled property tax exemptions. The filing deadline is April 15th. More information about each program is available on the assessing page of the town's website, or you can call the Assessing Department at 603-424-5136. The 2021 dog licenses are now available. Per state RSA law, all owners of dogs 4 months and older are required to license their dog by May 1st. Owners must present a valid rabies certificate and a neutering or spading certificate if applicable. Licenses are available at the town clerk's office during normal business hours of 9 to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. License renewals can also be completed by using the online payment services at Merrimack, our website, www.merrimacknh.gov, by mail, or by using our drop box outside. Thank you. Home Easter egg hunt kits. With COVID-19 restrictions still in place, the Parks and Rec Department is unable to hold its traditional Easter egg hunt this year. Instead, the Parks and Rec Department are offering free Easter egg hunt kits to Merrimack families. On Saturday, March 27th, registered families can come in and pick up their Easter egg hunt kit at the Merrimack Town Hall between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. This is a free event, but advance registrations is required. Please register on the Parks and Recreation website, www.merrimackparks, with an S, and rec, let me spell that out for you, MERRIMACKPARKSANDREC.org. Or you can call the office at 603-882-1046.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Which brings us to comments from the press and public. If anybody has comments they want to make to the council at this point, please come up to the mic. Seeing none, we'll move on. We have no recognitions, resignations, or retirements. Our first appointment, or our appointment for tonight, is with the with Avatar Associates President, Town Assessor Lauren Martin, for a discussion about our 2021 townwide revaluation update. The Town Council to receive information related to the 2021 townwide reevaluation as required by law under RSA 21-J:11. Good evening,
Hi.
Lauren. Thanks for joining us.
How are you this evening?
Doing good.
Hope everyone's been well. It's been a while since I've been in here.
Well, we certainly appreciate having you. So.
Yeah, it's always fun, that 5-year period. Everyone's excited to see me. It's that time of year.
We're not talking wastewater, so that's a better.
Yeah, it's all relative, I guess. So I just wanted to go over a little bit about the update process. A lot of you have already been through this before with us, and so it may be redundant. but it is that time of year. We just had our meeting with the Department of Revenue today to go over the assessment review process that goes along with this 5-year requirement. So they they didn't come in, we talked on Zoom. But they will be coming in to do a audit of all the assessing records to make sure that all the files are up to date with regard to elderly exemptions, veterans tax credits, that our current use files are in order. The staff in the assessing department does a wonderful job with all of that. So we've passed that kind of report card for the past, every 5 years for probably the past 20. So I don't anticipate any hiccups there. It should continue as it has. But the other components of that assessment review process are met with the 5-year requirement to value anew. That means that we have to bring all assessments up to market value. We need to make sure that everybody's being treated fairly and equitably. So that means some of those statistical standards like the coefficient of dispersion and the price-related differential have to be within certain guidelines to meet those standards for the state. But that's our responsibility to make sure that happens and that you meet that. I think there's probably already been some activity about the fact that we're up doing the update this year. That's why I figured I better come in and get you guys up to date in case you get those calls. I've had staff out already starting to do the sales verification process because that's the first step in that process is to analyze all those sales so that we can develop a new model. So we've started that, and through March and April that will continue, as well as the model development. We've sent out income and expense request forms to all of the commercial and industrial properties in town. So we're looking for feedback from local commercial and industrial property owners if they rent out their real estate. We're not looking to collect data about how many widgets they sell or their actual business. We're looking only for rental information and expense information on real estate that is rented. That's it. So we try to keep that as local as possible so that we're not looking at a real estate market in Manchester or Nashua, as it's very different than Merrimack. So we try to collect as much local data as possible. We get a lot of information from third-party sources as well that collect data and do report on Merrimack because it is large enough. But we do rely largely on the taxpayers of Merrimack to provide that information to us as well. So that's been out, and we're collecting that data now. We'll analyze that all through March and April, and we'll be out doing field review, if all goes according to plan, in May. What that means is we're doing a physical final field review. We're going to be looking at our property record cards and looking at people's properties out in the field. We're not going to be seeking inspections. We're not going to be knocking on doors. We're not taking measurements at that time. We're just making sure it's a final check to make sure everything is in good shape. But taxpayers may see me drive up their driveway and turn around and drive back out of their driveway or sit on the road. So we've put together some frequently asked questions because that's often referred to as a drive-by assessment, and taxpayers don't really understand the process. So we've drafted that information, and it is available on the assessing page website. And I think on the 25th, when I'm back here, Paul and I are going to film a little debut for assessing and some just frequently asked questions again, but we'll air that on the TV station as well. Just trying to be proactive, get as much information out there as possible, try to educate as many people. Don't want anyone to panic that values are going up drastically. They are going up drastically. I should preface that. Values are going up, taxes necessarily are not. That's the part that gets people kind of concerned. Right. If everything were equal and we didn't spend any more money and the values went up 30%, the tax rate would drop proportionally. So there shouldn't be big shifts in the tax bill. So what I did is run some analysis tonight to kind of give you some ballpark of what we're looking at. Sometimes when we do a reassessment, we see shifts in different groups of property, and one group of property might go up more than another group of property. I think, and I'm getting old, so I can't remember if it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, we saw values come up, but we saw, say, waterfront values go up more drastically than we saw residential property in general, which causes a certain group to get the burden shift. When I started to look through that breakdown of the different strata groups, they're all pretty tight, all across the board. So whether it's commercial properties, whether it's condominiums, mobile homes, residential land, manufactured homes, multifamilies, waterfront, water access, they all seem to be selling pretty similarly. So for April 1st of 2020, our ratio, which I cringe when I say it, was 78.4%. That was a year ago.
Yeah.
A preliminary analysis for April 1st of 2021 looks like we're at about 72% right now. So to bring things to 100%, if everyone's pretty similarly treated, we're going to see about a 30% increase in value. Don't panic. If everybody's coming up, the whole value of the town is coming up about that. Like I said, if there were no big changes in spending, that tax rate would come down proportionally. So there shouldn't be big shifts in the burden. Not everybody's at, 72%, but they're all relatively close in that range. There was no real big outliers there. So that's comforting that we're not going to see big shifts. So our hope is to bring everyone up to value. We'll send out notices of preliminary values probably early June. Our hopes would be to be doing informal hearings in July. And while our contract has a deadline, I think, of October 1st, our goal is, we have enough sales here. Our goal is to have everything turned over in August so that we can submit a timely MS1 and get everything finalized for the tax rate. So we'll continue to get some proactive information out there in addition to what we already have done with the filming for the TV. And if there's anything else that you think of that we can try to distribute or disseminate information, it would be greatly appreciated of, where we can get that. Our meeting with the DRA also brought up their monitoring process of this whole process. That's their obligation, is to monitor it and report back to you. So they go behind us and do a sampling on the sales work, on some new construction work, on just a random sampling to see how the data is. So they, to that end, will send out postcards to taxpayers. They also give taxpayers an opportunity to opt out. So if they don't want to be visited and participate in that, they can opt out of the process. For those that don't, they will come out, measure, and verify all the data on the record card. Currently, they, along with us, are not doing interior inspections due to COVID. I'm hoping that at some point this year that will change. But we've found some other tools to help get interior information when people are adamant that we have data wrong on their card. We don't want that to be the case. So if we can't go inside, but we need to go inside, we have to find an alternate method to make that happen. So we've relied on some virtual tours, FaceTime on our phones. We've, depending on what the complaint or concern is about, even pictures of some of that is sufficient. It just depends on what the question or concern is. I'm hoping that later this year, with vaccinations and numbers coming down, that maybe we could safely, with masks and sanitizing and not touching and distance, that we may be able to do that. But I want you on notice that we're not at the moment. So the state's not as well. That's why they wouldn't come today. They're not coming to any communities right now that have more than 10 cases of COVID. But they will, and they're hoping to be out in the summer as well. When they do come out, they drive marked cars. They will stop in, see assessing and the police department to let them know that they're in town, so that if taxpayers are concerned about who they are, they'll have that on file. And then they do a follow-up report. I call it the report card of everything, and they'll report that back to the town. Not as fast as I would like, but it will be, because they wait till the equalization process to get finished, and that doesn't get finished really until January, February, March of the subsequent year. So it's kind of hard to tell you if it was a good job. The positive thing here is I am not just, doing a revaluation and leaving at the end of the year. I'm still your contract assessor, so if there's questions or concerns, I'm still here to answer and address those. For the towns that have a reval company that comes in and just does it and they're gone, it's kind of
It's a
late
little
of
tough,
a
yeah.
report card, yeah. So they are getting better with that, but not as much as we'd like because of that equalization component, because that tests all those final components as far as proportionality and the statistics for measuring that, the COD and the PRD. So for 2020, what we had done with a lot of our communities, we had, instead of having in-person hearings, we had gone to phone hearings. And as I said to Paul, right now, a lot of that's just up in the air. We have set up an online scheduler. Taxpayers can set up an appointment online with us, and we did a phone hearing. That may change. If it's safe to have in-person hearings, we will do that. Right now, obviously, the concern is just the safety of having that many people coming into town hall, meeting face-to-face, meeting all the distance requirements. And so for right now, it's on hold again, but I'll keep you informed as that goes. It went surprisingly well last year, rolling out the online scheduling and doing phone appointments with taxpayers. It allowed a little bit more flexibility for setting an appointment time when they had to come in public and meet with us before face-to-face, and we'd tell them we're meeting between 8 and 4 or 4:30. That's not always convenient for people that work. So, last year in my pajamas in my office at, 8 o'clock at night, I might be having a phone appointment. So it allowed a little bit more flexibility for people that couldn't normally attend a hearing. So I think by and large, it was a positive response from most, given some crazy circumstances. And the fact that we weren't Zooming, they couldn't tell I was in my pajamas. So it was good. So we'll see how that goes. I think I'd like to get back to some normalcy, but it's just too unknown at the moment. But as soon as we do, we'll let you know. So that's essentially the 2021 update in a nutshell. And
Okay. Peter?
Lauren, just a couple of questions. I know the answers to them, but I think there's a lot of folks at home, and I'm glad to hear Paul and you were going to do a little video presentation for folks. But I remember the first time I bought a home and then had to, heard about a revaluation. I was like, boy, is this right? Can they do this? But so if this council said to you, we don't want to do it, do we have a choice?
no,
Okay.
The-
Does this happen in every community?
yes.
Okay.
Well, and let me back that up. So you can't tell me no or tell anyone no that you have to update. It's not only statutorily required to update at least once every 5 years, it's part of our Constitution. So there's no getting out of it. For 2021, there was a House bill that was seeking to stop all assessing practices, no new construction, no anything. That was House Bill 552. That excluded the 5-year requirement to update, and they focused just on assessing practices and weren't going to allow it. That was killed in the House, voted ITL 18-1. There's still a Senate bill that is essentially the same verbiage to eliminate assessing in the state for the year, to halt it. But that also would put a stop to the 5-year requirement to update for 2021. I think that bill has a bigger issue than the House bill did that was already voted down, in that to try to put a law into place that would violate the Constitution is not legal. So it's likely that that bill's going to be inexpedient to legislate as well. And I wrote to actually the municipal and county government on that bill for the House. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I think the mechanism in place was to try to, because of COVID, well, we won't just assess anything this year. Any new construction will help our taxpayers and give them a break. We won't assess them. And that was kind of a head scratcher for me, because if somebody could afford, during COVID, they were still working and they were putting on an addition or putting in a pool or building a new house, why shouldn't they pay taxes when everybody else in town is paying taxes? And what that actually does is shift the burden of that new construction to the people who couldn't afford to do it and didn't do it. So it didn't make a lot of sense. I understand the underlying reasoning behind it, I think, was to try to
try and
help
help,
those
yeah.
affected by COVID, but it would actually hurt those that couldn't do it. So that got killed pretty quickly. I'm still tracking the Senate bill, but because of the constitutional violation, I think that one will die fast too. But that was, pending out there. So you have to do the update.
So, yeah, so it's clear then that we don't have a choice in this. And again, I know you kind of glossed over it as you were talking about it, but if you had to tell the citizens here, what's the benefit of doing this?
Well, it not only normalizes your assessments in town and brings everyone in town, it on a larger scale, it started back with the Claremont decision and school funding, and particularly in communities that share schools. If one community in a district is at 50% of market value and not updating because they rely on the total value of your community. So if you're a community at 50% and this community is doing everything right and is at 100%, we're taking apples to oranges, and it's affecting the distribution of funds for state education, for county apportionment. So trying to keep everybody on a level playing field, because prior to the formation of the Assessing Standards Board, which is probably 25 years ago. I don't know now. I'm dating myself. But that was when really we started making sure that everyone was brought to standards. And there were some communities at that time that had not brought values up for 20 years. Litchfield was one of those I worked in, and they were one of the last ones to want to get on board. Well, all those communities that share services there, it's not a fair allocation of the funds. So that's the real reason why we want to bring everything to market value.
Thank you.
At least once in that 5-year period, if not more often.
Thanks.
Finley?
Thanks, Lauren. In your presentation, I didn't hear, you mentioned specifically commercial industrial. If you did, I'm sorry for not hearing it, but if you didn't, is it safe to assume that they have increased about the 30% that you spoke to?
Yes, they're right in line, and actually not as many sales with the commercial industrial as the residential, but they're actually trending a little bit closer to that 70%. So,
Which is good to hear, because I do recall back a
Was it
while ago.
5 or 10 years ago when there was a major shift between the residential and the business?
My thought actually went back to the late 80s when markets were collapsing, and or the early 90s, I guess.
Early
And commercial
90s, yeah.
industrial dropped like 50%, and then, residential was like 30, and it put the burden heavily on the residential taxpayer.
and that's not to say if anyone's going to pull records and look at them that they're not going to see commercial properties that don't change a lot, because there are some properties that won't be as largely affected. We have a lot of special purpose type properties in town, and those don't trend similarly with the smaller, more mom and pop type businesses. They would be harder to move. They're special, they're individualized use. Those are a little bit tougher, and we probably have a good handful of those that, you wouldn't see big shifts, but by and large, the bulk will trend similarly.
Yep.
So that is a good thing.
Yes, thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lauren, addressing the 30%, is this a statewide phenomena, or is this specifically related to Merrimack, or are there other communities that are dealing with this particular trend?
I don't want to say it's statewide. I said it's probably larger. We're seeing it more so in the south and
Southeastern
southeast.
Okay.
Once you get north of Concord, things get a little hinky. But southern New Hampshire and right out to the coast. The western part of the state tends to be a little bit behind, and the north tends to be a little bit behind. It takes a little bit longer to catch up there. In a tremendous amount of the updates we did for 2020, we saw easily those type of increases pretty much across the board there. So Merrimack's not unique. And I was kind of looking back just at where we were since 2016 when we did the last update. Because I've heard, is this like a result of COVID? Is COVID what caused everything to go up and go crazy? And it's really trended pretty evenly year by year since the last update. So from 2016 to 17, we saw about a 6.7% appreciation. From 17 to 18, it was about 5.4. 18 to 19, a 4.4% appreciation, and 19 to 20, a 4.8%. From 20 to 21, it's about 7. So more than the year prior, but not crazy. That was similar to what we saw from 16 to 17. So it's just been trending up. There's a lot of things that cause that, supply and demand, low interest rates. So low interest rates bring a lot of buyers to the market, and there just hasn't been anything on the market. So it causes the bidding wars. Drive around, there's not a lot of for sale signs out there. It doesn't even have time to put the for sale sign out, and it's already gone. It's on MLS 2 minutes and it's gone. The average trending in Merrimack, less than 10 days. It's crazy. And that's been going on for the past few years. That's not just this past year. I think COVID has definitely continued it here for those reasons. I think people can come to Merrimack, work remotely. We've always had an influx of people coming in and out. It's a great location, and they can work one day in Boston now and stay home and work the rest of the time. Have good internet connection, you're all good to go. But nothing crazy. It's not really a result of COVID. We've been seeing those trends consistently going up.
And just a quick question through you, Mr. Chairman, to Paul. I actually had my neighbor indicate to me that Avatar did the drive-through and they wanted to know what was going on. I kind of explained that we're going through the reval, and I'm just curious to know, are we going to be leveraging some of our tools that we have, like Nixle and the town's Facebook pages, the signs, the sign, the transfer station, the library, letting people know that reval's coming up, and there's potentially that a marked car is going to be coming down their driveway to do an examination?
We'll get with Lauren, and we'll get with the police department when we really go start. We began, like Lauren said, but we haven't been heavy into it because there was snow on the ground, and it's kind of hard to look at a piece of property when there's snow on it. But once we get really into the full swing, April, May, we'll definitely put it out there. It'll be on our front page of our website. The dispatchers and the police department will definitely have that. And Kyle will make sure that it's up on the boards.
Even if we do have the signs, that at least we can get verbiage on there to at least direct them to the webpage or to, another resource. So we did, reval's coming, go here for additional information, definitely. I mean, any other avenue that we can get out to people, I think it's better that they have the information up front, and they are knowledgeable about the process. It will help everybody feel a little bit more comfortable, hopefully. That's the goal.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Nancy?
First of all, I think the video idea is terrific. The only suggestion I would like to have you do is to emphasize the explanation about increased value, but maintaining of the tax amount that you're going to pay. So the tax rate per thousand will probably go down. I find that that's the biggest misconception that people, they only hear the increased evaluation. They're like, oh my God, am I going to have a 30% increase in my taxes? No. We have a budget. We only need enough money for the budget.
And
Our budget didn't go up 30%.
Not only do you just need that amount, you can't collect more than that amount.
More than that, that's correct.
And
Because we've already
we do hear
decided
that.
what the budget is.
Correct. And we hear that from taxpayers a lot, too. What is the town going to do with all this extra money?
Exactly.
They can't collect that. They don't set the tax rate. The state sets the tax rate, and they cannot collect any more money than you voted into
Correct.
for budget.
So
So
that's-
that
so when you
emphasis is
do
always
that,
important.
And what I would suggest is you're going to put it on the webpage, which is terrific. Do a direct link to the video.
Yes.
Okay.
So they can say, a video explaining the procedure and the process.
I think that's what we did last time.
Okay.
So I think that'll be helpful. I'm not the techno person, but
Right.
somebody.
We'll definitely get it linked up and that.
But I
and,
find that they don't, the idea of my house being worth more is terrific, but I'm going to pay more. To me,
Right,
that's the
right.
biggest thing.
And the fact that we can get them to understand about the different strata groups, and that it appears everything is trending similarly, means we won't be seeing those big shifts in tax burden, which will help, because that has happened in the past. As Finley said, it did switch from commercial to residential, or it did switch from residential to waterfront, so we're not really seeing that. So values are up. I'm hoping that I don't get lynched. I'll stay away from the forum, so that I don't.
Don't even look at it.
I know. I won't. It's heartbreaking sometimes. So I'll try to get the information out there. And even, I'm not on that forum, the one in town, but a lot of taxpayers do look at that. So maybe we can get some of our information to somebody there who at least can get something on there as well, so that the
Refer
people
them
that
to
look
the
there.
webpage
Yeah.
to see the video.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Paul, did you need to interrupt, or?
Just want to ask Lauren one question. We talk about residential, and in residential, there's different categories of residential, as we all know. Are you seeing the trend for condos versus single-family homes versus other, I'll call them the other residential home category? Are you seeing the same trends right now?
Similar trends, yep.
So-
Waterfront, water access,
Right.
multifamily, condominiums, mobile homes.
Right, so that's also good to point out, because
Yep.
I believe either the last or the valuation before, there was a really significant hit on condos. Condos really jumped. More
And
than.
some condos made, it's hard to talk generally,
But
because, that's not saying that one area won't see a bigger increase than another. We extract it right from the sales.
Right, so just so people out there can understand that,
Right.
we're looking at a group of individuals where your home might go up 45%, another home might only go up 25%. It all depends on the neighborhood and other
Right.
other assessment value tools.
Right, and as we get a little bit closer with more detailed analysis about the total increase we're seeing, I hate to put it out there too early, because until you're through the whole process, something could happen. So, but I do always give you that number for budgeting purposes and planning purposes, and to give an indication that it looks like right now we're looking at a preliminary increase of about, and I look at that total value of the town, what it was last year to what it is this year, but that's also inclusive of any new construction as well, so it's not really as much an apples to apples comparison, but at least then we can see what the total value is last year to this year, and I will try to give them that percentage so that they are fully aware of that, and then they can compare to where they are to that increase and have a better idea of what they're looking at.
Okay,
So
Bar-
more information is better.
Thank you. Barbara?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you do your video, if you could include also the commercial properties in that video as well, because a lot of people think, we have a lot of commercial property here in Merrimack. We've got the outlets. And people are thinking, oh, how come that type of property isn't reducing the tax burden significantly? So if you could throw something in there about that as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think Paul can probably help with some of that, because when you look at what the total value of any property is and what that relates to in tax dollars, so Paul, I know, has some of that information. So if I tell Paul, we're picking up $5 million in value, what does that mean on the tax rate? So while it sounds like a lot, when you compare it to all your services, it may only be 5 cents. And so I think knowing that to some degree is helpful as well. And that's probably that probably wasn't a good number-wise, but I did.
Peter?
Lauren, just one last question.
Sure.
I know you touched upon it. People allowing your folks into homes to inspect the inside. I've had folks talk to me and say, why do I want to let them inside? Are they gonna, if I've done a nice job in my house, they're gonna raise my taxes? So what's the benefit of doing that?
So when we can't get into the home, or we haven't been into a home in a number of years, we're left to estimate. If I'm in a neighborhood of homes and there's been a lot of renovation and, based on the year, we're going to assume you did that anyway. So we always want to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. No one wants to pay more taxes. No one wants to pay more than their fair share. And at the end of the day, if everyone is just assessed accurately for what they have, no more, no less, then you have a fair bill. So if we get in, the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to be accurate. And when we can't get in, we're going to guess. We're going to estimate. We're going to assume. Those are not things any taxpayer wants anyone to do about their home. You know, newer construction homes, and by newer construction, I mean, you know, not a 1900s home. If no one's been in, are we going to estimate you have a finished basement? Very likely. We're not going to estimate that on the 1800s home that has a dirt basement. But, you know, those are reasonable assumptions to make, as that's what a lot of homeowners will do. Are we going to estimate that on your 1970s ranch that you've updated your kitchen and baths? If that's a trend in that area, probably we're going to assume you did too. If we've been in your neighbors and this neighbor and they've all done that, you know, it's not fair to the people that have let us in to make sure it's accurate if we underestimate on those that we didn't get into. That said, right now we're not doing those interior inspections, but we have been collecting data over years. We have a tremendous amount of sales in Merrimack on average, you know, 600 to 700 sales in that year's time frame. So we get a bird's eye view of all of those properties. Because between MLS, virtual tours, we see all of those. So we see more today than we did 10 years ago with some of those tools. So that helps as well. It's not going to give us a snapshot of everybody's home, but a lot of them. We have, you know, on average, that type of sales transactions that are happening and we're reviewing annually. So we do see inside a lot of them. You're welcome.
Lon, did you have something?
Thank you very much for the presentation to this point. When we get to the point of educating, informing, enlightening the public, I just beg of the staff to be as accurate and as concise with your terminology and your presentation as possible. All of us, or at least we've been made aware of the problems Nashville faced over the last couple of years, and I think some of what I've read and delved into gets to some of what Nancy was suggesting and whatever, in terms of, yeah, getting the information out there, making sure people understand, but hyperbole and estimation and so on, 3 or 4 months into the process, can really raise a fuss. So I just ask for accuracy and conciseness. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Lauren, I wanted to just kind of get you to kind of review a couple of things. Your people are currently out in marked cars?
Yes.
Is that right? So it'll say Avatar Associates or something like that on it, or?
Avatar Municipal Services, I think,
Okay.
on the side of the car. Right now, Evan Roberge has been here. He will check in with the town. He checks in with the police department, marked car, lanyard around his neck with his identification on it. And he's done everything up to date as far as sales go. So he will be back to do some additional sales work. And Isaiah's been out there from the assessing department as well, doing new construction work as well. I don't think we've had any other staff in town working on the update yet.
Okay, but people will see a marked car or somebody with
Absolutely.
an ID on, and so they can feel a little bit more comfortable in that regard. You're going to start doing field reviews, which basically were quote-unquote drive-bys?
That's me in a car with another assessor supervisor driving the town, going up driveways, looking at homes, comparing the record that we have on file to the home and making sure it's an accurate representation and nothing has changed drastically from the last time we viewed the property.
Okay, and that's so you said you're not going to do measurements and you're not planning to go inside before you make your decision on the new assessed values?
Correct, because we've been collecting data over the past so many years with town staff.
Okay.
Yep.
And when you get those assessments out, you said early June, you thought you'd start getting them out, or?
I'm thinking, yeah, the beginning to mid-June, we'll have some preliminary values that we'll be mailing out, because my hope would be to start doing the informal hearings in July.
Oh, that's where I was going. So you'll
Yeah.
be doing informal hearings from July through whenever?
The whole month of July until we're done, yeah,
Until you.
probably.
And so
yeah.
if people, if you've had to make some guesstimates and people see that they don't have a finished basement, but you claim they did.
That's the opportunity
can
for us to correct
contact you
that.
for those.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To talk to you about it. And then they could offer a virtual tour with
Yep.
their phone or something like
And
that to
if
show
by
you.
that, and if by that point, the numbers have come down, vaccines are, and
Yeah.
July is safer, that we can go out there and put a mask on and do an inspection, we'll do that. I don't want somebody to get a final tax bill for the year with bad data on their card. So if somebody wants to let us in and wants that data corrected, whatever means we have to go through, we'll make sure that data is corrected for them. So the information will be available on the website again, so they'll be able to review their cards. The old information is, through here is updated, and then once we start the new process, the new values will be up there, and they'll be able to compare their data, look at it. We've always put all that information out there to try to make it as easy for taxpayers to review the data as well. Because prior to all of that computerization, taxpayers were left to come here and ask to see a copy of their card, and that didn't happen very often. So, the past, probably 20-plus years now, between the computers on the counter available for taxpayers with the data all online, it's really helped fine-tune that data to make sure that it's as accurate as it can be. There's still errors that occur in the process, and as soon as they're brought to light, we will rectify those with the taxpayers, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Are there any other questions or comments? Looks like we're good.
Good.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. That was a lot of information, and we
It
appreciate
is,
the work you
and
guys are
through the
doing.
process, I'm happy to come back in and do an update as we get a little bit closer, maybe with the analysis, so that we can, again, just keep getting the information out there.
Okay,
All right?
great. Thank you very much.
All
Lauren,
right, I'll
thank
see you
you.
soon. Thanks. Oh, I didn't shut it off, people.
The next item on our agenda is going to be a public hearing, the Abby Griffin Memorial Funds from Merrimack Fire and Police Departments, submitted by Fire Chief Matthew Duke and Police Chief Brian Levesque. Town Council will hold a public hearing to authorize the acceptance and expenditure of funds from the Abby Griffin Memorial Fund in the amount of, but not to exceed, $17,808 for the purchase of replacement cardio fitness equipment for the fire stations, treadmills and stair machines, et cetera, for the fire department, and for body armor plates and gym equipment for the police department. In addition, the police department will also be purchasing tools for the special response team pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15. Chief, looks like you're up first.
Good evening.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Chairman, members of Town Council, I'm here to request purchasing several items from Abbott Griffin Fund. The first item I'd like to discuss is external body armor plates. Several years ago, we authorized our officers to wear external carriers for the body armors where they can attach items to the vest to alleviate back issues, hip issues and such, to get some weight off their duty belt. As such, we had plate carriers in the cars that used to go over our regular uniforms that would stop rifle rounds. Well, clearly, that'd be hard to get over because now we have our pouches up here and such. So I'm asking a request to purchase 44 plates that would slide into the zippered portion of this vest right here to protect officers against rifle rounds. For the public, these vests that we wear just currently will pretty much stop a pistol round, but obviously there's always a threat of a rifle, so this will stop a rifle round. So that would be issued to each officer that they carry in their duty bags with them as they patrol, so it would be at the ready when they need it to.
And those go where?
It goes into the zipper portion of this vest.
Inside.
So this unzips and slides in.
Okay, but you have something on right now, and this is an addition to that?
Yes, so this, right now, this is our typical body armor that we wear.
Yeah.
And that stops handgun rounds, and this actually stops rifle rounds, which is a higher velocity round. So this would stop a .223 round, .762 round.
So when would you put something like that on? When-
Anytime we have an active threat,
Active shooter type
if we're in
situation?
a barricade subject, we know what the person inside the house is, officer could easily just slide these in quickly and utilize it.
Okay.
Any questions on that part? The next couple items that we like to purchase is, several years ago, we came before the town council to request to update our gym facility at the station. We weren't able to buy everything we wanted back then, so we're looking to supplement some more functional exercise equipment. We're looking to buy different items such as a trap bar, a platform, kettlebells, weight rack, soft medicine balls, indoor cycling bikes, and some more dumbbells, just to supplement our gym equipment.
And the gym equipment is used by people while they're on time, while they're on duty or
They
off
can
duty, or-
utilize it on duty. Most officers utilize it either before or after shift. We did have the gym closed for a period of time during COVID. A couple months ago, we did open it back up with limited use.
Okay. Peter?
Chief, and just a heads up, I'll probably ask the fire chief as well, but, and I'm glad we provide these facilities. I think it's important for all our first responders and the equipment. But insurance-wise, Paul, maybe you can answer this. By having gyms provided for our first responders and stuff, is there a benefit as well?
It's all factored into our insurance liability claim.
Okay.
And that's all based, the way they base it on salary dollars, they base it on all other dollars, they base it on building values. There's a lot of different valuations that they use to provide us with the property liability and having our own gyms. They would look at that when they value our workers' comp as well.
Okay, now, does our healthcare provider offer any incentives to help pay for some of this equipment for our folks?
They would, that's a good question, Counselor Albert. We haven't approached them to say, hey, we bought this equipment, could you reimburse us? If there is a gym membership that these police officers do use and they can show that they used it X amount of time, they do get like a debit card or a credit card with a valuation that they can go spend and, off their they'll get reimbursed from the membership. And I will ask them that question tomorrow because I don't know the answer.
Because I remember we set that gym up when we first set it up over at the police station, that I think the insurance company helped us purchase some of the equipment. I can't guarantee, but I thought they did. So it might be worth asking.
I'll ask them again. We have health, for lack of a better term, health advisors in each department that they do, getting people healthy, walking. So I'll ask them to look into it.
I mean, if we're doing the right thing, emphasizing health and supporting it, then maybe the insurance company can cut us some slack. I doubt it, but.
Yeah. Well, and you're requesting this funds from the Abby Griffin Fund, so this is not taxpayer dollars. This is a fund that actually has an interest income annually, and we distributed this amount
Right.
each year, right?
Yeah, for those who don't know, Abby Griffin, the park is named after Abby Griffin. She has 3 funds that she set up before she died. And one fund was to support police and fire. Another fund is to help support some welfare. And a third fund is to help support some medical, people with medical bills in the town of Merrimack that Pat handles. So with that, this is money that is set aside, and we get a phone call from the trustees saying, you got X amount of money each year, and it's been roughly between $15,000 and $16,000 a year, split between the fire and the police department to utilize. And there are certain things they can buy. We cannot use this to upgrade the station, new windows, things of that sort. It has to be for either the health or well-being of both the police and fire department for equipment, and it can't be something that was supplemented in the budget. It has to be something in addition to the budget. And those are the rules that were set up from the trustees.
Okay, thank you.
The last couple items are for our special response team. That's our tactical team that will respond for any critical or major incidents. One is a small battering ram. They have rams right now, but this is for more compact quarters that they can carry with them. One is a halogen tool, which is used to essentially a pry bar to open up doors. And the last item is something that we've been needing for a while. It's a steel quick cut-off saw with blades. This is to gain entry into metal door frames, gates, locks, and chains. Currently, our officers on the SRT have trained with the fire department in the use of this equipment, so they know how to utilize it. But it's necessary for us to have our own. That way we can respond and go when we need to, because chances are if it's a critical incident, fire is going to be out doing other things as well. They're not going to be able to lend us their saw. So those are the last items.
Okay. Any other questions? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, thank you. My question is regarding the saw. So if the fire department doesn't arrive on a scene and a police officer is there, conceivably you could be potentially extracting somebody or setting it up so that the fire can't extract. I'm just curious to know what dynamic situations would be used.
So it could be used by anyone in the police department, but it would mainly be for the purpose of the special response team if they're going into a critical incident, barricaded subject where they need to make entry quickly into a building. Because if it's a mass incident or a critical incident, chances are the fire department's going to be deployed someplace as well. That's why we should have our own equipment and be able to utilize it quickly to gain entry, to extract someone if we have to. Hopefully, we don't have to use any of this stuff. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah. Peter?
Thanks, Chief.
I know it was in discussion a while ago. Do we have EMTs on the team?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? So that was for half of that amount of money, right? Or
Approximately, yes.
approximately? Okay.
$8,904.
All right. Do we need to do something about that, or are we going to listen to the fire department
You
first?
can listen to the fire department, or you can take up the police department individually and approve that, or you can do both at the same time. Brian, you might want to use this one again. Yeah.
Okay.
It's up to how the council wants to handle this. They can do them individually, or they can do them all at once.
I'm thinking we'll just do it all at once.
Yeah, do it all at
We'll hear
once.
from the fire department.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Chief?
I don't know if I won or lost. You actually did a good job of setting the stage for me, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, members of the council, for allowing us to come before you and ask to expend our portion of the funds out of the Abbey Griffin Fund. I promised that Chief LeVake and I didn't compare notes before we chose what to purchase this year, but we've opted to request to use the funds to upgrade our fitness center as well. What you'll see before you is a list of the items we wanted to purchase. The most significant of which is, of course, the Stairmaster. Those carry a pretty hefty price in a commercial model, along with some dumbbells, a couple of weighted vests, dip bar attachments. I had to ask the folks that helped us put this together what the landmines were. There's a picture in here, and when we go through the pictures, I'll explain it a little bit. Some weight clamps that hold the weight plates onto the bars, jump ropes, and resistance bands. So as I said, the most significant item on there is, of course, the Stairmaster. The commercial fitness grade cardio equipment is very expensive, but it's designed to be used day in and day out in a commercial fitness center application. So we get much more life out of it. If we were to purchase something that was intended for a homeowner, it would not last the year in all likelihood. And obviously, the purpose of that is going up and down stairs is a regular part of our job, carrying heavy things, wearing heavy equipment. So the weight vests, along with the Stairmaster, simulate that perfectly for us. The folks can put the weight vests on, work out on the Stairmaster, and it simulates perfectly the types of things that we need to do in our job. And the rest of it is basically just some assorted fitness equipment and accessories that allow the guys and the girls to do other work-related exercises. If we flip ahead, you'll see the pictures there. The stair machine is relatively self-explanatory. The dumbbell set and rack is, again, to just replace some older ones. They've been used a lot. They're chipping, paint's coming off, they're getting rusty. These are rubber coated, so they're better for the floor. They obviously won't rust because they're rubber coated, so we're expecting to get more durability out of those, along with the rack to store them. There's a picture there of the weighted vest that's adjustable, I believe from 5 to 80 pounds, so you can adjust the weight as needed to suit your means. The next photo is the dip bar, and those go on our weight rack and allow you to do certain different types of exercises. The next picture is the landmine, which doesn't look like much, but what it does is the kind of shadowed out portion there is a 45-pound weight plate that you lay on the floor, and you put this knuckle arrangement into the weight plate, and then you put the Olympic bar into the other portion of it that sticks up, and then you can weight the other end of the Olympic bar, so it allows you to work out at other than just right angles. It puts that bar at an angle, so you can push it up at an angle or lift it at an angle, and it better simulates a lot of the things, the environments that the guys operate in. And then there's a photo of the weight clamps, and those simply just hold the plates on the bar. The ones that we're proposing to buy, excuse me, are made out of plastic, so they don't scrape the metal off the bar and apparently leave metal slivers on the floor. And then the jump rope and then the resistance bands allow you to either do specific movements, or they can actually assist in other movements. You can use them as an assist for, say, a pull-up. You can use that to pick up some of your weight. And that's what we're proposing to buy for a total of $8,896.20.
So is this all going into the main station, or?
It will be split between the two stations. So the Stairmaster will obviously go at Central, as will the dumbbell rack. There's 2 weight vests, so those can be split. The dip bar attachment for the weight rack, there will be 1 for each station. The landmines, there'll be 1 for each station. And I believe they're intending to split up the other smaller items too, the clamps and the resistance bands, to try to spread it out.
Okay, but do the firefighters at the South Station, do they end up at the main station periodically? Or?
They do. All of our personnel rotate on some type of schedule, so they all cycle through the main station.
Okay,
So everybody will have an opportunity to use it.
and you do 24-hour shifts, so when there's not a fire call or something like that, at least at the main station, there'll be Stairmasters and things that they can work out on.
Exactly. Yep, we do encourage the folks to work out on duty, and many of them, our fitness centers in use every day, both by people who are on duty and a lot of the folks use it off duty as well. They'll come in maybe either before shift or they'll stay a little bit after shift, and they'll get their workout in.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, Chief, you kind of touched on it. I was going to ask you, is there a specific program, are you guys monitoring, saying, hey, to each of your firefighters, look, you need to get in here 3 times a week and work on, because I think it's great. I think, working out towards those realistic movements you guys do, I think that's awesome, with the weight vest and the Stairmaster. But is there a set program, or can you do that, or is that a collective bargaining issue?
We don't have a set program that says, everybody shall. What we do have, one of our folks has a background and education in fitness and exercise, and he's our wellness coordinator through Health Trust, and he's been working with any of the members that want to use the fitness center to develop a program to tailor to their specific needs, to try to develop anything where they feel they need improvement, and he's making sure that everybody's doing the movements properly, not lifting too much weight until they're ready. So we've seen a significant increase in the usage of it and the results that people are getting out of it.
Now, with having this certified instructor through Health Trust, does that assist us in our insurance, again, for kind of following that trail?
We will double check. Health Trust, because we have these wellness coordinators, as I was talking about, does give us $500 a year to use for certain programs,
Okay.
to put on healthy programs. and things of that sort. So if the fire department wanted to, they could use that $500 to purchase an additional weight or additional crunch bar or something of that sort. Same thing with the police department. They have a wellness coordinator. Every department has a wellness coordinator. So, but I am definitely going to ask about the, what we talked about earlier, about benefit of having these two groups, having a gym, and if they want to really kick in and help us out with some of this.
Okay, any other questions? I know it's critical to keep you guys in shape. You have physical fitness exams, don't you, that they have to pass to continue on, or you?
Not fitness, not fitness exams, but they are required to take an annual physical examination every year, yes.
Okay. But just to do their job, they need to be able to run upstairs with 50 pounds of extra weight and stuff like that. And- Well, that too, I'm sure. Okay. If there's no other questions, do we have a motion to? Oh, it's a public hearing. That's a good point. So how about if we open the public hearing, now that we've heard from the two different groups, at 8:06? If anybody has any comments or wants to make any comments about the distribution of the funds for the Abby Griffin Memorial Fund to the Merrimack Police and Fire for purposes as stated. Okay, so at 8:07, we'll close the public hearing, and thank you for the presentations. Now,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the town council authorize the acceptance and expenditure of funds from the Abby Griffin Memorial Fund in the amount of, but not to exceed, $17,808 for the purchase of replacement cardio fitness equipment for the fire stations as outlined in in Assistant Chief Sean Brechtel's memo to the town council dated March 5th, and for body armor plates and gym equipment for the police department, which was outlined in a memo from Chief Brian Levesque dated February 25th to us. In addition, in response to that memo, the police department will also be purchasing tools for the special response team pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15, and furthermore, that the town manager or her proxy be authorized to sign the necessary paperwork to accept and expend.
motion is made by Bill and seconded by Peter. Any other questions, comments? We'll call for a vote. All those in, Finley?
No, I just think it important, every year when we go through this, I was impressed that Abby Griffin did this for the town. It's pretty amazing to me, but I think Paul left one out. The three things he mentioned that they can utilize the funds for, they also, at least they used to do scholarships, because I know my wife was a recipient of that for 4 years in a row. And so I'm imagining they still do it, and it's pretty awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. So any other, if there's no other comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the presentation, and good luck. Our next public hearing is, let me change pages here, is on milfoil control efforts, submitted by Planning and Zoning Administrator Robert Price. The Town Council will hold a public hearing to consider the acceptance and authorization of the expenditures of up to $16,350 for the milfoil treatment program at Horseshoe Pond and Natticook Lake, of which $6,540 is from a grant from NHDES for milfoil control, and the town's matching share is $9,810 to be funded from the Milfoil Expendable Capital Reserve Fund, and to authorize the town manager or her designee to execute any and all documents which may be necessary. This request represents funding to allow for treatment of milfoil in Horseshoe Pond and Natticook Lake in 2021. Is anybody presenting? You're presenting
I'm presenting.
on behalf of Robert Price.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Paul?
You stole my thunder.
Well, it was printed in the agenda, so.
No problem. I just want to let the council know that we do this every year. We started this milfoil treatment at these two ponds several years ago. And back then, the state was 80-20, then it went to 75-25, then it went to 60-40. Now it's 40-60 match, meaning 60% for the town, 40% for the state. Milfoil is a problem throughout the state, and it's becoming more and more of a problem in most of the waterways in the state. We have two groups of people that are very diligent. Natticook Lake Association actually goes out there, and they've been trained, and they mark the milfoil so that when we do these harvestings and the dash treatments, it's very effective for that day with the diver. So they're not searching for it. It's marked. They go right there. They get to the root of the matter, and they pull it out. Last year we had herbicide treatments. This year we do not need herbicide treatments. We're just doing what a dash is, and that's a diver assistant, basically vacuum suction pull of the milfoil to try to eradicate as much as possible. And they'll be doing that in both the Natticook Lake and Horseshoe Pond. And like I said, as Chairman said, $16,350 is what we're estimating the total cost of the project, and the state will be matching 40% of that, or $6,540, and the town will be coming up through our milfoil and aquatic species expendable trust of $9,810, and we do have sufficient funds in that trust fund to cover this cost.
Okay, is there any questions or comments from the council? Council? Lon?
Yeah, in our backup material, it mentioned a mesh that was put down that was apparently disturbed by fishing. Am I correct in reading that they're not going to use that particular method again this coming year?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I may.
Yes.
Just as a follow-up, I was going to suggest if you are going to use that mesh, perhaps we should establish a no fishing perimeter in that area, just as a comment.
Right. What Councilor Woods is talking about is that we put a mesh out to kind of push down the growth in in one area. And during the fishing process, it was disturbed. However, it was down long enough. They are going to actually do the dash there this year, and they're going to do the diver assisted in that area to try to eradicate. You'll never fully eradicate milfoil, but try to eradicate as much as possible in that area.
Okay. All right, so let's open the public hearing at 8:13. If anybody wants to comment on milfoil extraction or the program this year, now would be a good time to come up and tell us about it. I'm waiting for the clock to tick over so I can say. So at 8:13 and a half, 8:14, we're going to close the public hearing, seeing nobody coming up to speak. Is there any other comments from the council at this point? There is a suggested motion in Robert Price's memo. If somebody wanted to make a motion. So moved as printed.
Yep.
That works.
No.
No. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
I move to accept and authorize the expenditure up to $16,350.
Peter,
Peter.
can you turn your mic on?
Mike.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm guilty again. I move to accept and authorize the expenditure of up to $16,350 for the milfoil treatment program at Horseshoe Pond and Natticook Lake, of which $6,540 is from a grant from NHDES for milfoil control, and the town's matching share is $9,810 to be funded from the Milfoil Expendable Capital Reserve Fund. And furthermore, the town council authorizes the town manager and her designee to execute, or his designee, to execute any and all documents which may be necessary.
Second.
So a motion was made by Peter and seconded by Barbara. Is there any other comments? Bill?
Yeah, just a quick thanks to the neighbors that live on Island Drive and Natticook Lake. They've been tremendously vigilant in keeping up with, as Paul alluded to, marking and identifying the milfoil. And it's only through their volunteering to do this are we able to continue this program, to keep up with making sure that it's not expanding in these bodies of water so that people have access to them. So to the people that live at Horseshoe Pond and Natticook Lake, thank you very much for your continued vigilance. It's appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? It passes 7-0-0. And my thanks to Amy Smagula from the exotic species. She's the exotic species program coordinator. Excuse me. No. Yeah, well, it's not supposed to ring when it's like that unless it's an emergency, but that didn't look like an emergency number I recognize. I apologize. She's the, where was I? The exotic species program coordinator that helps us each year to put this through from the Department of Environmental Services. So that passed and we're all good to go. Okay. It brings us to our next item on the agenda. Do we have legislative updates? I don't, okay. Town manager's report.
I just have one item tonight, is that the transfer station and recycling center will begin its summer operations Thursday, April 8th, and continue through Thursday, September 30th. During that time, the operation hours will on Thursday at the facility will be from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The facility will continue normal business the other days, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So we are going through our summer hours. We're starting them a little bit early this year, but we figure we've heard from a lot of residents, and they really like the Thursday night extended hours. And Kyle was fortunate enough today to check out when the sunset supposedly is going to be on April 8th, and it's going to be about 7:21, and on September 30th, it's going to be about 7:28. So we'll be able to get most of the daylight through those extended hours. So,
Awesome. Okay, thank you. I didn't mention that Eileen was excused tonight. Obviously, she's not here, but, and I will take this moment to just say, last night at the deliberative session, we had a special tribute for her. Eileen is retiring effective at the end of April. And so that was her last town manager at a town meeting visit. And we also were happily introducing that Paul McCallie is going to be stepping in to be our town manager. So anybody that missed our deliberative session last night, our congratulations go to Eileen in her retirement after 10 years of service here in the town of Merrimack, and she'll be sorely missed. But she's been working really hard with Paul to make sure that he's ready and willing to step in and take over and run the ship here for us starting May 1. So thank you, Paul. Thank you. And we look forward to that. We don't have a consent agenda tonight, so we got into old business. First item is the Merrimack 275th Anniversary Planning Committee Project Proposal, submitted by the 275th Anniversary Planning Committee member Chuck Moore. The Town Council to consider the 275th Anniversary Planning Committee's proposal fundraising project to build a covered bridge at Twin Bridge Park over Babusick Brook.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Come on, Chuck. I just want to give you a little background. We established the 275th committee for our anniversary, which is April 2nd. Matt Kasparius is the chair of the committee, Parks and Rec. When we started, there was a group of people that wanted to give a gift back, a present to the town for the 275th. And what happened is that they decided on items that they would like to see come forward, and they brought together the covered bridge aspect to the committee. The committee then in turn asked them to bring this to the Town Center Committee because the location is Twin Bridge Park, and that's in the town center, and they went to the town center committee, and they proposed this idea of the covered bridge, and the town center committee was in favor of the project. We then asked the committee to go back and get some costing estimates of how much it would be they would need to raise to build this covered bridge, and they came back and they're going to discuss. They brought that back to the 275th committee, and the 275th committee was proud to present this as a project for the community, for the council to hear the presentation of a covered bridge. Once backtracking just a little bit, when we started with the 275th, we brought an idea of the bridge forward, and there was some questions the town council had about it. And I believe that John Listoka, who's been working on the project with Chuck Mower, the two people who've been involved, and Lori Rothaus is over there. She's been involved, and Rosemary Rung is in the back corner. They've all been involved with this process and will be involved with the fundraising going forward if the council so chooses to accept this project.
Okay, thank you. Whoever, well, I don't know which of you is
Thank you very much, Paul.
presenting.
You saved us a considerable amount of time in making the presentation. I am Chuck Mower. I live at 4 Depot Street. I am here tonight representing the Planning Committee in its entirety. In our presentation, we'll be enumerating the people that were on it according to the last minutes of the last meeting. But I'd like to tell you that this has been gaining a great deal of interest, and there are a number of other people that have been very excited about jumping in and joining the Planning Committee for this specific purpose. So to be as brief and professional as I can be, John has put up the first slide in our presentation. And it is an image of the bridge that we conceive going over the actual site at Babuzik Brook. This bridge is actually the Flume Bridge in Franconia Notch, which we all agreed was a very attractive bridge and well suited to our location, generally speaking. And so we simply lifted the image and photoshopped it right into our own site. So it gives a pretty accurate representation of what we have in mind and what valuable assets may accrue to us as a result of it. The location, for those of you who are not familiar, and oddly enough, there are a lot of people in Merrimack that are unfamiliar with the location. We have here a map of Twin Bridges Park, which is located in the central part of the community. Most people would know it as the MYA Park, but it is in fact the Twin Bridge Park. And it was assembled by a collaborative effort of a number of very far-thinking individuals early in the 20th century, recognizing the geologic beauty and importance of the site. They agreed to aggregate certain parcels and deeds to create the park for the beauty and enjoyment of the people of Merrimack. And that red arrow is the precise location where the bridge is intended to make the first crossing of Babuzik Brook. The yellow area is the larger part of the Twin Bridge Park, and the blue area on the other side of the arrow is in fact a large island, and it is also part of the Twin Bridge Park. And from the other side, there is an existing bridge that runs out to Twin Bridge Road, Longer Road, I forget what it's named now. And of course, it's been here for the enjoyment of people for any number of years. I certainly grew up playing down there and enjoyed it a great deal. So we have an exceptionally large parcel available to us for increased public use in a multi-recreational scheme. Right now, the majority of the public use at Twin Bridge Park is centered around MYA activities. So this is the anniversary committee, so enumerated. I'm going to have to move this a little closer if I'm going to see some of that writing, I think. You'll pardon me.
Well, while Chuck is moving forward, there's a blue handout in front of you folks with perfect, with all the slides and verbiage, if you can't read on the screens. Thank you.
Thanks.
As Town Manager McCauley, that may be the first time he's actually been called that. Congratulations, Paul. As he spoke earlier to this subject, at the anniversary celebration of the 250th, the Planning Committee, under the Remembrance Gift, gave the Abby Griffin Memorial Bandstand. And so the 275th Planning Committee is forwarding this practice to the Town Council for their acceptance. Our gift will repair the failing bridge on an important historic site. It will also provide for a cultural improvement to the Twin Bridge Park. It is our intention to build a covered bridge that will not only provide access to a multi-recreational use of the park, but will provide a revenue-producing destination venue for events of all kinds. There really is no limit to the reunions, weddings, summer picnics, and dances that can be enjoyed with this gift in the Twin Bridge Park. Our committee met with the Town Center Committee, and we shared our concept with them. The Town Center Committee, after consideration, gave us a favorable review and ensured us that our ideas were consistent with the master plan and the Town Center Committee plan. And they voted to give us a favorable review to the Town Council. It's important to note that the importance of this historical archaeological site cannot be understated. The stone abutments of the bridge and the road itself are the first improvements made by settlers of Narragansett No. 5 in 1733. This portion of what we call Merrimack was given to the soldiers who fought in King Philip's War and was annexed in the second act of incorporation in 1750. Is recognized by a plaque at the end of Depot Street in what is known as the Reed's Ferry section of town. And in fact, that parcel that was annexed is the exact definition of Reed's Ferry. It went from the Souhegan River north to the border with Bedford. So anybody that lives above the Souhegan River is technically a resident of Reed's Ferry, of which I am the unofficial mayor. 200 feet downstream is the old coal grist mill. That's perfectly all right. It was constructed in the 18th century and was part of our earliest colonial days. The grains ground here were grains from Europe. There were wheat, oats, barley, rye, and of course native corn. The miller would grind meal, middlings, and flour that could be eaten or traded for other goods and services. The mill dam and the raceway can still be seen below the bridge, sharing the work of early stonemasons. This parcel was also essentially the same land that was given by the Massachusetts Bay Colony to the great Indian chief Passaconaway. It was his favorite place, as he related, and it's where he spent his final days that we are aware of. He particularly liked this area because it was fertile on the one side of the river, and it had wonderful hunting grounds on the other side of the river. And the two large islands in the middle of the river, which the town of Merrimack owns, were his favorite because they were blissfully apart from any of the insect population that bothered the Indians anywhere else. They had the paradise of an island. We today also have a paradise of an island, and yet we underutilize it. And so as we move forward, we believe that much of this original Indian land, original Narragansett No. 5 land, and original Twin Bridge Park area preserved can provide tremendous additional recreational resources and cultural resources for the town of Merrimack. One of the things that we've realized in COVID is that people are now willing, ready, and able to get out. If you have traveled anywhere at all, you see all the rail trail headways and so forth, full of cars, people everywhere. I know the town of Merrimack had some difficulty because there were so many people that wanted to get out and enjoy fresh air and nature. And what a wonderful change, from our previous disposition to just accept the acceleration of life around us. We have much to give here in Merrimack and much to work with for future generations, just as people in the past provided for us, not the least of which was Abby Griffin. Our predecessors would never know us. They left us something important for the future because they believed in generational improvements and progress. And so we have a rare opportunity not to just rely on their wisdom about the future, but to try to emulate their honor and their morality in acting like this in such a noble way on behalf of the public. So here we have an upstream and a downstream view of the abutments. And you will notice that you can see some of the concrete that was applied during the Great Depression by the Works Progress Administration. That actually was the last improvement to this particular site. The bridge on the other side of the island was washed out in what we all refer to as the Mother's Day flood, if we all remember.
Yes.
And a very modest bridge replaced it. And this bridge needs attention, and we thought that it was perhaps better of us to put something more into the bridge crossing that could be better utilized, better stir economic opportunities locally, better provide cultural opportunities, and better provide a more welcoming access to the land assets that we have at Twin Bridge Park. We were down there on Martin Luther King Day, and albeit being a holiday, but the bridge area and the island was really quite populated with people that wanted to get out. And we talked to many of them about why they were there, where they were from, and so forth. And we had one family, the Fingston family, who agreed to be in our video presentation. They live here in Merrimack, and they were very excited about the idea of utilizing something like this. And we've been in communication with them, and should you decide to approve this project, they, like so many others, are jumping at the opportunity to be on board and help us create something. You can see in the lower left-hand photo, particularly, the stone abutments. Again, I'd like to emphasize, This is the work of stone masons in 1733. 1733. And they are still there, just as they placed them, with a little bit of concrete patched onto either side. And, what a remarkable testament, to the perseverance of our forefathers to create something out of the wilderness that was necessary and useful for them to access the area. And one of the other things that was also necessary in those days, well, for that matter, it is today as well, we want access to economic opportunities. Well, they couldn't do much with the grains that they were raising agriculturally until they threshed them and got out the grains of the cereals. And then, well, they had to kind of grind them themselves like the Indians did with a mortar and pestle. But that wasn't very productive in the long run. They wanted to prosper. They wanted to sell. They wanted to make money. They wanted to advance. And so you had to have a mill. Unfortunately, the town owns a grist mill 200 feet downstream from what we are calling the grist mill bridge. And it's an archaeological site that's beautiful. And it sits right at the mill pond on the end of this geologic cascade of some 80 feet over probably 800 feet. And again, there are opportunities. We invite people to discover our past, that we might better choose what our future is. And committee's proposal. We have, by way of example here, something that is tangible. You can take a look at it, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, you can understand how a bridge is constructed, and get some basic idea of the magnitude of the undertaking itself. We're proposing a town truss style or lattice truss configuration. The actual bridge will have a little bit of a camber to it, and that is for two reasons. We want water on the inside of the bridge to drain off of the bridge. And from an engineering standpoint, when you create a camber, it vectors the forces back into the abutments rather than directly down on top of the bridge. You might see some old town truss bridges that are sagging in the middle. That's because they didn't have that little bit of camber to vector those forces. And we ran across a very interesting quote by an artist in England. And it just rang so true to us. Winter is a bridge to another time. And that's certainly what we have experienced here. Our winter of COVID, it is a bridge to another time that we're all very anxious to experience. And in this case, to another century. But we're not really referring to the preceding centuries. We're talking about the future century. This is a bridge to another century. When we think about the opportunities the citizens of Merrimack might enjoy with the completion of this project over time, we're very excited to be some small and insignificant part of making that happen. So the concept will provide several major outcomes. An improved bridge and access will be realized. A pavilion will be afforded for park users. Regularly speaking, if you're down there and the weather's a little inclement, you can stand on the bridge for as long as you want. You don't have to put up your umbrella and run for safety or anything like that. So it does have a certain pavilion use. It's an historic site that will be preserved. The very first road, actually, the very first road, period. Dunstable being the first inland community in Massachusetts. And Narragansett number 5 was just above the Sauhegan River. And when they organized, they were required to build a bridge and a road from what they called the Great River Road at the Sauhegan all the way to Piscataquag Village. And so its place in history is just incredibly important. In 1760, General Stark and his men walked across that bridge down to Thornton's Ferry, out to the King's Road, and over to Fort Number 4. It took them 3 days to march. And from Fort Number 4, they resupplied, and they cut the first road across the state of Vermont in support of the troops at Crown Point, which we now know as Fort Ticonderoga. So we had men from Merrimack marching great distances to create a nation, to consolidate their possessions, both at home and in a larger sense. And they walked across this bridge on their way to making history. It's incredible for me to think about these things in that historic sense. The town center plan will be supported. A revenue-producing destination venue will advance local economic opportunities. And our history will give residents a deeper understanding of our past, that we might better choose our future. This is a January 5th photo of the coal grist mill just below the proposed grist mill bridge, circa 1741. The mill raceway in the background turned the breast wheel and gears that powered the mill. The dam in the foreground harnessed the great force of nature, Babuzik Brook. And the power of water was central to the activities of early Merrimack, and it remains central to the activities of present-day life here in Merrimack. And so we received a estimate from the Bridge Right of America, Arnold Grayton. Whether you are familiar with him or not, I would highly recommend you go on YouTube and take a look at what Arnold has done in his life. I had the good fortune many, many years ago of meeting his father, Milton Grayton, who was the first covered bridge restorer and builder. And he passed that on to his son, Arnold, and to Arnold's sons as well. It's just something to see a Arnold Grayton bridge. It is done in the perfect way. I recall going up to Littleton one time to see the grist mill up there. And they had a little covered bridge that went across the river, the Israel River. And I was so disappointed because it was kind of a commercial grade kind of covered bridge. Well, I guess it did the trick from the utility standpoint, but didn't speak to the spirit of New England, didn't speak to the idea of a true covered bridge. It didn't remind us of the covered bridges that we once had here in Merrimack, which of course we all realize could never survive in this day and age. But our lament can be restored by the construction of this bridge as a permanent monument to our early settlers, our town fathers, our early bridge makers, our mill makers, and stand as an iconic symbol that is economically vibrant in the future. We think that's a tremendous idea. So the contract that he suggested was for a 60-foot-long bridge, 12 feet inside to inside. This model over here is to scale. This is representative of an inch equals a foot. So this bridge is exactly the scale of the bridge proposed, done in the town trust style, just as an early covered bridge would be done. The estimate is $450,000. And of course, there are considerations about fuel and material costs and so on and so forth. I subscribed to a woodworking paper online, and I was reading yesterday morning that the price of lumber has been skyrocketing, and in the last year, the price of an average family home has increased by $24,000 simply because of the price of wood, and it's all COVID related. Now, in this particular case, this is very special wood. This is not something you would go down to Home Depot and get. Grayton buys his materials from a commercial industry in Connecticut, where these timbers, because that's what most of these are, they are timbers, not 2x4s or 2x12s. They have to be graded so that they can carry specific weight loads and achieve certain standards for live loads and dead loads and all of those things, even though we're never actually going to drive over this. Because believe it or not, getting people on that bridge is having the same engineering effects on the bridge as vehicular traffic. And so, yes, the wood is expensive. The bridge is large, 12 feet by 60 feet. We think that can accommodate an awful lot of dancers, wedding events, and so forth. It's our intention to see that power is brought to the bridge so that we can have certain alarm systems. We can have power for those events we intend to charge for. And we can have monitoring cameras. It's quite the thing now to have a live camera that anybody can tune into and see a particular covered bridge at any given time of the night or day, just as we did for the Merrimack Village Dam and that particular proposal that was underway there. And so, while recognizing the sobriety of that kind of price tag, we have known entities on our planning committee. These are people who have always come to the fore in Merrimack to pitch in, to do, to create, and to advance. And I believe that we can do this. And our committee believes that we can do this. And it doesn't need to be done in a week, or a month, or even a year. We are prepared to see this through because what we are giving to our community is far more important than what each and every one of us individually could ever contribute. At this point, I would like to share the presentation with my colleague, John Listoka. And when John's finished, we have a number of people from the planning committee here. I hope they will come up and add additional remarks. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have concerning the proposal and its merits or its weaknesses. We need all of the advice that we can get to ultimately come to a good conclusion for a project like this. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. So
Good evening, council. My name is John Ostoka. I live at 183 Amherst Road in Merrimack, and I'm the president of the Historical Society. Can you hear me okay?
I
No?
think so. I'm not getting any signs saying we've got problems, so we're doing good.
Yeah,
It's-
okay,
It's
fine.
definitely on.
So Chuck just gave a wonderful presentation, and I nicknamed him the Fritz Weatherby of Merrimack, actually. He's a tough act to follow. My presentation is going to be on history, and not the nuts and bolts of the project like Chuck was talking about. So, and the reason for that is, I thought about this quite a bit, that you folks have to make decisions, and there's a lot of things in this presentation that I didn't know even existed until I put all this together. So, and I've been in town quite a while, and I think I think you find it interesting. So, I put a few bullets up, and these are the things I'm gonna cover in my presentation. It's the dams, the mills, the sawmills and the bridges in the town of Merrimack. Why were they important? Where were they located? What was their function? How did they work? And when the water-powered mills were not needed anymore. So this is a very familiar photo for you folks. This is the dam at Sauhegan Falls by the Chamberlain Bridge. This was taken before they removed the bridge.
Removed it, yeah.
And to the left is the John Chamberlain Bridge. Oddly enough, the John Chamberlain Bridge was built in 1921, actually 100 years ago. So not only are we celebrating our 275th, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of that granite bridge. It's a unique bridge. It's curved on one side and straight on the other. And that's one of the, I think it may be the only granite bridge like that in the country. Straight on one side, curved on the other. The granite came from Milford, and there was a company, an engineering firm in Milford that actually built the John Chamberlain Bridge. I thought I'd show you folks a map. This map was created in 1892, and there are some red arrows there. They start from, I'm going to start from the right side and work my way west up the Sauhegan River. But, I don't know, the mouse doesn't show. So, under where it says Merrimack PO, there's a red arrow that points to Babusick Brook. And that's exactly where Twin Bridges is, and that's exactly where the coal grist mill is. And that flows right into the Sauhegan. Now, I think this is important, that the first 150 years of our community, that the Sauhegan River and its tributaries were the most dammed in rivers in the east coast of the country. When I started this, I only knew very few, and it's so interesting just to go back in time and look at the names of the people and the bridges that built grist mills, built sawmills, had brickyards that did all these things, and they did it with very simple tools. So Chuck has already talked about Twin Bridges and the coal grist mill. The Chamberlain Bridge is the one with the Route 3 crosses the Merrimack River right here in town. So John Chamberlain built the first dam in grist mill there back in the 1750s. So that was a really important part of the river and for industry at that time. So those dams and those grist mills, sleuthways were taken out by floods, rebuilt, bridges rebuilt from wood to granite, and those mills stopped working in the early 1950s. I'll be covering that in future slides. But if you go west to the left-hand side of this map, you'll see a third arrow. And there's names here that a lot of you are going to recognize. One is J.H. Upham, the Upham Farm. If that arrow is pointing to a spot on the river called Indian Ledges. And at that point, there were three mills at that point. The river drops quite a bit in a short distance, which made it very easy for the settlers to harness that power. And then on the south side of the river, it says S. Fuller. That stands for Samuel Fuller. He had a mill on the south side of the river, and hence Fuller Mill Road. It's part of our heritage. Then if you look at the arrow, at that third arrow at the Upham, there were two letters. It says SM. SM stands for sawmill on these maps. It took a while to figure out how to read the maps. So if you go down to the last arrow, the fourth one on the lower left corner, again, it points to SM, which are sawmill, and that's the Fields Mill at Severn's Bridge. That's Severn's Bridge back in the day. Now, these bridges were necessary, but before this, we had bridges crossing there. They had mills on both sides of the river, is because farms on the south side of the river didn't have any access to get hundreds of pounds of seed and grain to the north side of the river. So they had a mill on the south side, and they had a mill on the north side. These two portions weren't accessible back in the 1700s by bridge. So Charles Ireland, in fact, he donated quite a bit of land to the town along the Sauhegan River. He lived at 222 Amherst Road. And this is a hand-drawn map by Charles Ireland. And in the middle, you can see Fuller Mill Road. And Fuller Mill Road goes down to an end where there was a home there. And to the right of that, you see three black dots: Usher Mill, Hale Wilkins Mill, and Stearns Mill. Stearns Mill, again, is on the south side of the river. And Usher's and Wilkins are on the north side. And Wilson Hill Road is parallels on the north side of the river. Then up above to the left, west of the river, you can also see Fields Mill. So these were there between 1750 and 1850. We don't know exactly when they were there. But I know this piece of property well because I own property on both sides of Leicester Road, and I own down to Indian Ledges. I know where the mill is, the Hale Wilkins Mill on the north side of the river, because when I was younger, we'd play at the river, and we could see holes drilled by hand where the Wilkins Mill is that would anchor that mill in place. This part of the river is narrow, and it has a steep drop to it, and in the spring, it floods, and it's pretty violent. So these mills didn't survive very long, and I'm sure they had to be rebuilt. So there's 4 mills on property that I know, half a mile apart. And this is not unusual on the Souhegan River. Oh, thank you.
I know.
Oh,
So,
thank you. So, one of the most prominent mills, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this, it's called the Ayers Mill. And it was owned by 2 different people, Ayers, E-A-Y-R-S, and Ayers, A-Y-E-R-S. They were related by marriage, but it was a drug mill and a spice mill during the 1700s. And the drug mills of that time period didn't have the same meaning as drug mills today. So they ground spices, and ingredients, and the ingredients were brought from Europe, South America, but they ground these and mixed these ingredients in prepared medicines they put in apothecaries to sell in the local pharmacies of the day.
John.
Here's an 1858 map. The arrow that it's pointing to is pointing to a drug mill. That brook is Pennachuck Brook, and that's the boundary between Nashua and Merrimack. The road that goes vertical, that's Route 3. Concord Street today was called Concord Road back in the day. And that little bend where it goes up to the river and then back out, you would be familiar that north of that is Harris Pond Mall, and below it is, on the south side of it, is Pennachuck Waterworks. So if you're driving south on Route 3 and you cross over that bridge and you look to the right, especially this time of year, there's no leaves on the trees, you can see that bridge that's there. That still exists, and there's remnants of that road that still exists. It's a granite bridge reinforced with concrete, probably from the WPA like Chuck talked about.
John, can I interrupt you for just a second? What you're doing is awesome. I really appreciate it. We
Only-
came to talk about the covered bridge project, so if you can help me understand how this all is going to tie together
Well,
and wrap it up.
I will.
Okay.
How this is gonna help you is you folks have to make decisions. The town has always struggled with the town center.
Yep.
And we're 4 villages. And I think that this bridge would, and this project, would enhance this as the town center. This PowerPoint that I'm giving you talks about little pockets of homes that surrounded a bridge. They didn't have a town center back then. So, like Chuck said, we shared this with the town center committee, and they kind of agreed. I know the town's trying to make a walkway across town, and I think this would be part of it. So,
Okay. I mean, I really appreciate it, and I
Yep.
think this is awesome information.
I know,
What I'd like to do, Chuck was inviting us to give us some comments on the bridge project and things of that nature.
absolutely.
And I'm all for that. And this history is wonderful to learn about the bridges and the grist mills and various things. It's after 9 now, we're starting
I
to run short on
understand,
time.
I
so
understand.
I feel bad trying to cut you off, but if there's anything else you want to kind of summarize for us.
Well, just that the mills brought industry to this town and brought the town together. They were very important in the starting or the beginning of the town of Merrimack. So
Absolutely.
I'll let it go there.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Rosemary?
Thank you very much. For the record, I'm Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive, and I serve on the 275th Anniversary Committee. I just want to close up by saying, well, let me back up. My husband and I have lived in Merrimack for 38 years. I can't believe it. I was doing the math. And it was the first time, a couple months ago, when Chuck was talking about this project, that we went down Twin Bridge Road. Normally, I turn into where Gold's Gym is, but we went down, never been down there before, parked, crossed the one bridge, went to the other bridge, and went through all that whole area. A lot of it we had to bushwhack. And I was looking at the bridge, and I was thinking about Chuck's idea, and I thought, you know, we talk so much about history, and you can't talk to Chuck without learning about history. But I saw it totally different. I saw it as being the future, especially when we walked past the bend of the pond, past that grist mill, which I didn't even know what it was until he told me what it was. And I see this whole project being a springboard to really cultural and economic development in the town center of Merrimack, because you can actually tie that in to Watson Park. I can see it being a base for a greenway in our town, and what Chuck said about more recreation. And then when Chuck told us the price tag, I was like, you know, probably how you felt, right?
I understand that.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. But I thought, you know what? It's bold. When do we do something that's bold? And when we do things that are bold, when we have the courage to do it, it lasts. It lasts. And it's part of our history, but it's tying to our future. It's not going to cost 1 penny in taxes. I'm totally committed to working with others to raise this money. So I just want you to, I hope you can get the vision I have for that whole area. The natural beauty, yes, it needs to be cleaned up, and I have a lot of concerns about the water quality down there. But I think we can create something that's priceless. And I'd like you just to think about having that vision with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Finley?
Thanks, Rosemary. I did choke when I heard the price, I have to say. The way I got my arms wrapped around it, though, is in my mind, I'm thinking it had to be done this year. And I'm going, I just can't imagine. But the reality is this project could take a couple of years to fundraise. I always go back to 25 years ago because I remember a lot about that project. And in a short period of time, I want to say probably about 6 to 8 months, they actually fundraised over $100,000. We tried to get numbers for that, but I guess there's no record been kept, as Paul shakes his head, letting me know. And but back 25 years ago, they were able to do that in a short time. So taking into account the value of $1 today and so on, I believe the project can, the goal of getting that project complete is definitely attainable. Not this year, but I can imagine a couple of years down the road that it will be fully funded and ready to go. I think John's point was, he was pointing out the little economic hubs, the little centers of communities, very small in those days compared to today, but this is kind of fits in that regard. it will become a center, an attraction for people to really enjoy. And my wife sits on the subcommittee, and so I've learned all these things, watched Chuck build this bridge. It was pretty amazing, and I'm fully into the project and believe it will be something very worthwhile upon its completion.
And I don't disagree with you a bit. I have some questions or concerns that I hope have been considered, and I did want to bring them up if I could. We're in the process of rebuilding all the bridges across Babusick Brook right now. And DW Highway Bridge is one of the last ones that we're going to have to do. And all of those are either being raised or widened to stop the choke on floodwaters. And so I'm concerned about floodwater issues and losing this bridge during something like a Mother's Day flood after all the trouble and efforts to go into it. So I was hoping you could address those aspects.
I'd be happy to, Tom. This bridge very much looks like a toy, but the real bridge isn't a toy, and it must suffer all of the permitting standards that virtually all other construction does, both at the local, state, and depending upon how funds are available from the federal level. And so we recognize that there is a certain flow choke at this particular site, and that flow engineering will have to be undertaken to determine exactly how to best proceed. But this bridge will actually be elevated approximately 2 feet over the top of the existing bridge. The thought being that we were able to preserve the historic Great Depression era bridge. We're able to preserve the abutments and so forth of the original bridge, and by creating a 60-foot bridge, bring it back and bring it up, we would probably fall within all of those necessary standards. And of course, this is a turnkey job by Grayton Associates. So they would be doing all of the abutment work and so forth, which is considerable when you stop and think about what holds a bridge down and creates the approach. And they have assured us that they will meet all of the standards. They are regulated by the state as much as anything else, and of course the standards that we have here in town as well. How much that flow engineering will actually cost, we don't know. There's a possibility that we could utilize the flow information from the Mother's Day flood bridge replacement on the other side of the island. But in any event, we know that we're going to replace the Route 3 bridge, and we have to have flow data for that as well. So in between everything else, we can find the appropriate flow data. It may well include that we have to actually cut the concrete span out and just leave the concrete abutments. We'd like not to do that if we can avoid it, but that may be the ultimate engineering answer to an adequate flow in that particular chokehold. But the abutments on either end will also be raised. So we certainly suspect that. We won't have any difficulty creating an engineering solution for that particular problem.
Okay, that's good, it's encouraging. I didn't realize you were planning to either rebuild or build up on the abutments, and so I was concerned, because I know the Bedford Road Bridge that's just been recently built had significant reconstruction work on it as far as size and flow capabilities and lifting and whatnot, and I'm sure Kyle can help with understanding where a lot of that came from, and
Yeah,
so it's got to flow all the way down the river.
I should also note that the little bridge on the other side of the island, the little steel bridge with the wooden floorboards on it, is modest in comparison to our bridge, but that bridge ran about $300,000. Okay, so, whom?
Peter the barber.
Peter? Sorry.
Tom, Chuck, one of the things we kind of discovered in trying to build this pathway under the Chamberlain Bridge was, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had to kind of hold up everything because they had to do a lot of archaeological digging. And I suspect with the history in that area, that you may encounter that issue, that they may, I'm not sure what they're gonna wanna say, but, you know, that's a consideration to keep in mind. And how long did that hold up the project that hasn't even broken ground yet over
Yeah.
there? So that held up that project easily a year and a half. But that's something to keep in mind when you do this going forward. I think it's a great idea, and you know, it'd be beautiful to do, but I think, yeah, there's a lot more to consider. And I know you guys are thinking that already.
Okay. Barbara?
So I just want to clarify, the $450,000 does not include any work or engineering or manufacturing or raising the abutments or tearing out the concrete, if that you end up having to do that to increase or optimize the choke flow through there. That doesn't get included in that number. So that's all in addition to the $450,000.
That's true, but the contract calls for a turnkey job, and what it refers to as tone abutments is the complete engineered and completed appropriate permitted abutment for the bridge on either end.
Okay. And I know you've been mentioning about, different events that could happen on the bridge. Who oversees the bridge once it's completed?
That would be through the Parks and Rec Committee.
Okay.
It'd be released
Right,
back
we have Matt
to,
Fitzgerald or something.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Leading
what I'm
the
looking
committee.
at.
Well, we're hoping it's not the same people that have been overlooking it here in the past.
The bridge?
Yes.
Yeah. Nancy?
Just clarification, maybe I misunderstood Chuck, but was that a yes or no on Barbara's question? Does that price that we have include any engineering or processes regarding permits that you're gonna have to go through? Which doesn't change my opinion. It's more
all right.
it's curiosity.
There are yet some unknowns
Okay.
because of what we ultimately plan to do with the bridge. Obviously, Arnold Grayton is not going to bring power down to the bridge.
Right.
That's our responsibility. And those are our idea concepts. I'm sure that there will be appurtenances that are costly to some degree. But once again, are willing to fundraise for this to be essentially tax-free to the community is one that we stand upon. And we do know that we have resources. There are any number of funding opportunities that we can apply to for funds. But more than anything, we want this to be a project that is invested in the community. We want kids to give us 50 cents. We want kids to give us $1. We want people to say, yeah, I gave a few bucks for that. Absolutely. Essentially, what we need is 450 people to give us $1,000.
Well, I think, my opinion, I think it's a wonderful idea. I just want to be able to have it, I'm thinking of like corporations, I mean, all those things, which we have some good ones in this town, right? But you have to be able to put your request higher because you know it's going to be more than 450. You just are. And you don't know. Some people, some organizations or corporations will say, okay, we'll give you 10%. Well, 10% of 450 is a lot less than 10% of 600 because you have to be all-inclusive in what you're going to do. So I'm just encouraging you to be more realistic. I think 450 is like, ugh, but the reality is that's 450 for the bridge. That's not inclusive of things like electricity and stuff. So I think you just have to be more realistic in your request of what you're gonna need. It doesn't mean you still don't do it. It's a higher bar in terms of the amount of money, but I really think you're gonna need it. And I think this is gonna be a terrific drawing card, because you're exemplifying what you're talking about.
Oh, Nancy, could I invite you to accompany us on fundraising efforts with major corporations?
Oh, I will help as much as I can. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I do agree that whole area is totally underutilized, and I'm aware of it, because people just don't, one, think of it, know it, but it's also just not prepared for the population that could come. And this would be the front door invitation to it.
We do have one tool to our advantage that our predecessors had as well. We seem to have lost it today, but I think we have rediscovered this particular tool, and that is time.
Mhm.
We have the time to put our shoulder to the wheel and see this through.
And I think that's one advantage, because my first thought is, how are you gonna get this done by the 275th? Well, that's not your goal. So that really does add a different dimension to it.
Well, I promise it'll be done by the 300th.
Well, I'm glad you'll be around to finish it up, because I probably won't be.
Any other comments? Bill?
I'll make this very quick, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck, thank you for your presentation. Mr. Listoka, thank you very much for your presentation. I really, really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this, because I actually do, to echo what Councilor Rothaus was saying, I was able to kind of visualize what you were trying to do of tying the four villages into this particular location. So I'm not gonna belabor. I agree with a lot of the comments. Matter of fact, Chairman Koenig kind of raised a concern that I had regarding the flow of the Babusick Brook and some of the work that we've done. But Representative Rung stole my word. I think this is bold. It was the first word that popped in my mind when I saw both of you gentlemen bringing it in tonight, of what you want to accomplish. And I was thinking about it, and it absolutely would potentially become a destination location. I really believe that. So you have my support. I wish the committee the best of success as you proceed forward with your fundraising, and, you know, not speaking for the council of the town, but I think we're all behind you, and we're gonna, you know, if there are any questions or concerns, you know, we're gonna be here to help you get over the finish line. So, as I said, I do agree with Representative Rung, absolutely bold, blew my mind. We've got one covered bridge in town that doesn't get a lot of attention. It would be nice to add another one into our arsenal to draw some more attention to our community, so. Thank you very much for the presentation, and Chuck, great job on the model. That's impressive, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else? So I echo your comments. I think it's a great idea, and when I first heard the concept of a covered bridge being thrown out, I thought it was wonderful. I thought I was shooting high when I thought 200,000. So I commend you for going for this, and would love to see this be able to come to fruition. So I'm all in to help out, and glad that you have, especially the model. I think that's really awesome to see that. So I don't know where you need to go from here. Peter?
Yeah, Tom, just one more thing I'm thinking, because I know it's come up on the Conservation Commission, is, are there any covenants on this property regarding what can and can't be done? Has that been looked at? I think we gotta look at that historically, because I know that conservation properties throughout town have various restrictions, so might be something.
We'll look into it.
Okay.
We'll look in the
Yeah,
deed. We'll look at the
definitely
deed, but
something
I
we'll have to know.
don't believe there's any restrictions at the
Okay,
moment.
yeah, just-
Okay.
To answer your other question,
Yeah.
if the council would indulge the committee and make a motion to allow the 275th committee to start fundraising towards the erection of a covered bridge at Twin Bridge Park, that would be great, because they can actually take that to the next level when they start their fundraising, the council has approved them to start fundraising.
So moved.
Okay, would we set up a fund through the town?
Yes,
finance department
yes,
to-
yes, there will be a special, years ago when I first started, 16 years ago, there was actually a covered bridge account that was set up a long time ago. We'd probably resurrect that account for the donations. And once they do have enough money, the $450,000 or whatever it takes to get this erected, we'll be able to do it, and we'll be able to give the council financials of where we stand with the fundraising.
Okay. So we have a motion from Bill to encourage, and Nancy seconded. Help me understand quite to encourage the committee to move forward with fundraising, set up an account with the town finance department to hold those funds, and encourage them in any way that we can to proceed with this 275th anniversary project.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
I just have a quick question,
Yes.
and it has to do with process. Once that's established, I'm assuming it's gonna pass. Once that's established, do they have to come back, or does, for example, engineering has to come back that they have permission to spend that money?
Yes.
Is that the process?
Yes, we do that as part of the process.
Okay.
When we start to expend the money, we'd bring it back. And
Perfect, okay.
like we did with the dog park.
Yep.
You accepted the
Gotcha.
donations, and when they were ready to build the dog park, they came
To
in front of
spend
you
some money.
and you dispense the money.
Excellent, thank you.
Does that line up with what you were looking for? I'll get you, Ron. Okay. Lon?
Yes, are there time constraints or limitations on the bridge builder's obligation to you? Because these projects sometimes run longer than your proposed 25 years.
No more than 25 years.
I'd like to make this foundationally clear. This is a project that is being undertaken by the town of Merrimack and is overseen by the town council. It will be your bridge. We won't be spending any money on it. We will be giving you the money to spend on it. And we pledge that we will give you all the money that is necessary to see this through and to do it in partnership with you. The contractor himself is under no obligation whatsoever. He's simply given us an estimate. This could possibly be the last bridge that Arnold Grayton ever builds. But Grayton Associates will go on. His son, Tim, is now the president and essentially the chief operator of the company. And we expect, because they are the Bridge Race of America, that at the point that is necessary, you will be able to negotiate a contract with them that is suitable to both them and yourselves. We certainly do not presume in any way, shape, or form to be taking the responsibility for those things that truly belong in your hands. But we're happy to give you all the money you need to make this happen.
Awesome. Okay, Barbara?
So in other words, that means that town employees will be overseeing the construction of the bridge. I think that's what he just said. He's turning it over to
Well,
the town to do.
The town is
We
going
need to be prepared for that.
Town is going to be responsible for it, whether it goes to the highway department or whether we contract that out specifically to somebody that, like Paul was suggesting, money is going to be accrued into an account that they're going to raise to be able to pay and be specifically for this project. But spending that money is going to be a requirement to come before the town council. So when we go to set up an engineering study or we go to do whatever, it's going to have to come back to us for approval so that we don't just have a citizen in Merrimack saying, I want to spend $100,000 on a survey.
Granted, that's not what I heard. I heard that when there's enough money in the till to build a bridge, we build it. So I just want us to be prepared for the fact that Now we're involving town staff to oversee the project. I think that's what you said, isn't it? That you turn over the money and it gets done.
Paul, you want to?
For clarification purposes, we would have anyways. Any project that really occurs on town property, we oversee. Not to steal MYA's thunder, but they're putting in a new scoreboard, hopefully, at Bice Field. We would oversee the installation of that and make sure it's up to our codes and up to everything. That's why Kyle's been involved with this project since the get-go, with Chuck, because he's gonna get involved with it as well.
Okay.
So
Hi, Lori.
that's exactly what I was going to say. So 25 years ago, when we came before the town council, which was the selectmen at the time, to talk about the bandstand, we formed a partnership with the selectmen. And I remember a woman named Ruth Liberty was the one that gave the presentation, and the selectman, Eddie Silva, he wasn't really impressed by the idea of the bandstand and how were we going to raise that money. And she pointed her finger at him and she said, "This is our vision and we're going to do it." And he said, "Okay, Ruth." And so here we are, 25 years later, and it's the same kind of questions. But it's really, we're looking to build that, collaboration. My husband loves that word, and he hates it. and partner with the town, because this is really the birthday gift to the town. And when that bandstand was built, it wasn't built by corporate America. It was built by Merrimack citizens, because corporate America didn't give us very much money. It was those $25, $50 donations. We sent out that letter and we asked people, this is our vision, this is what we want. And you know what? People said, this is our town. And that's the great town that we live in. We live in a great community. And so I'm excited for Merrimack. And I appreciate the passion that these people have to give Merrimack, a center, and give Merrimack, something great that will be remembered 25 years from now.
Awesome. Thank you. So are there any other comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0-0. We got a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we can do it. And with your help and assistance all the way. Finley.
Lori and I have decided that we want to give the first $1,000 check to the committee, and so I'll be bringing it to Paul tomorrow. I appreciate the council's decision tonight. I'm very excited about the project. So, thank you. So you only need 448. There you
Now,
go.
yeah, we're down to 448. We're getting there.
Oh, my God.
Are we on a roll?
So thank you.
Without talking to my wife, I was going to offer 100, but I need to get some assistance to go that far. Anyway,
Don't worry about
great.
it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While we're still here, so that brings us to new business, acceptance of a donation for the Bice Athletic Field. The town council to consider the acceptance and expenditure of a donation in the amount of $7,500 from Hayward's Ice Cream to be used for the purchase of a scoreboard to be installed at Bice Field located at 487 DW Highway, as well as update the outfield fence, wrap, and signage pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have John, the president of the MYA, here tonight to discuss the donation. Basically, what happened is John gave me a call and said, "Paul, we got a donation for a scoreboard similar to the scoreboard that we did at the football field, Vets Park. However, knowing that we signed a contract and that we're still in that one-year agreement, then it says that any additional signage at Bice Field, whether it's on the outfield or scoreboard or advertising, needs to come before the town council for approval. What what can I do? And I said, well, we'll bring it in front of the council and have them look at it because it is an amendment to the contract that they have with the town. And it's a great donation. Hayward's is given back to the community. You know, they've been, since 360's open, they've been there. The other day, I saw a couple of people out there. I'm sure, I didn't go by today, I'm sure they have long lines for their ice cream, but, you know, over the weekend, I saw people out there for the ice cream as well, and things of that sort. So while they're trying to get rid of the technical difficulties, I can keep talking, or John could just go through his program, because the picture of it is in the backup presentation that you do have.
Yeah.
See, I knew if I talked long enough.
Can you put that in presentation mode?
Good evening, everyone.
I think he turned it off.
Okay, hello?
There,
Yeah.
that's better.
So we have the funding, by the way. Yeah, just to get that cleared up. The baseball program came to me, Director Jason Lancaster, who's in the back, is the baseball director of that program. And their scoreboard at Bice Field broke. It's fairly old, it broke. Repairing those old ones is very difficult. Companies don't want to touch them. So they were on an endeavor to see if they can replace that scoreboard. They approached, they did some marketing, if you will, and they found a new business in town, Hayward's Ice Cream, that's willing to donate the funds to put that scoreboard in place. This is very similar to, the football program did something very similar with Sweet Ginger. I don't know if you remember that, but they put that scoreboard up at the Vets Park football field. Did a whole dedication thing with the owners of Sweet Ginger. It was pretty cool, and it looks great, actually. So without any further ado, I'll just quickly put the picture up. So this is the graphic we get from the company that sells these scoreboards, and of course, Hayward's Ice Cream gave us the graphics to put on the bottom. Very similar to the football program. The signage is a bolt-on piece of metal, right? So down the road, if it fades or starts looking shabby, you can always replace it. If Hayward's Ice Cream decides to go out of business or something like that, we can always take it down and replace it, that type of thing. So it shows a level of permanence, but it's not, you know, it's not like once you put it up, you can never take it down, so that's good. So anyway, so the cost of the scoreboard is $7,500 or so, plus or minus, you know, a few bucks that the baseball program will pony up if need be. But it's a great donation to the program. You don't find sponsors that are willing to pony up that much money too often. So we think it'll be a great addition to the program. Look good at the park. It's, you know, boy, what a happy looking sign, isn't it? And fits the theme of the baseball park and the kids and all that sort of jazz. So, so that's really where we're at on the scoreboard piece. Just want to show you a few other things. Jason and the baseball program are thinking about covering the, you all know Bice Field, right? Baseball park. The outfield fence is kind of way in the back, you know, kind of in front of the brush back there.
Kind of where outfield fences
Yeah,
belong, right?
There's not much behind it, let's put it that way, right? So their thought was to, they found a company that makes what they call an outfield fence wrap. It basically is like a fence height, kind of plastic tarp signage sort of thing that goes from foul pole to foul pole. It will say this or this. They'll print whatever you want on it, so we'll put Merrimack Youth Baseball. That's the baseball's logo there on either side. You know, just to give that outfield a look of of where kids, you know, usually the major leagues play there, right? The big time, if you will, and it gives a nice feel of a kind of a cool park, a modern park to play in. I was thinking about it a little bit. It probably would protect the player a little bit, so that
never jamming against the chain link of the fence. At least they have something in between there. So that's another thing that we want to add. Baseball program will pay for that. It's not outrageous money.
John, how's that going to work with the signage that you have on there, the sponsorship signage you have on there now?
Yeah, so Jason, you can step in whenever you like, but I believe the signage now is similar banner material, right? And it sits on top of this. So all the way across, for the most part, it's white space. And then this youth baseball thing is in the middle. Am I explaining that correctly, Jason?
Good evening, Council. My name is Jason Lancaster. I live at 23 Grapevine Road in Merrimack. John is correct. So this is the center portion, and there are sponsor panels or a period of each, essentially probably about 100 feet, 120 feet on each side, that would be available to place the sponsor banners that are either existing or that we're approaching the town council for approval for new banners as well.
So this doesn't go edge to edge, it's somewhere along the back fence?
Yes, this particular image, so the entire banner wrap will go edge to edge. The center portion would be the Merrimack Youth Baseball, and there would be adjacent open panels that would accommodate any of the sponsorship banners that we currently have or are seeking approval for.
Okay. I guess my confusion is you're calling it a banner wrap that goes the entire way.
Yeah.
But it almost sounds like you just got banner signs you're placing the entire way.
This particular wrap comes 400 feet. It'll go from the left field foul pole all the way across the fence to the right field foul pole. It's not an advertisement, other than for our own
So this piece
program.
we're seeing is just a chunk of the middle?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Now I'm
Jason,
catching
you
up.
would think this Merrimack Youth Baseball would be how many feet wide?
I believe the dimensions are in the middle, but I believe this middle piece is approximately 90 feet. And it would cover essentially the center field area. For those of you familiar, left center, right in the middle.
Yeah, okay.
Not to be a Debbie Downer, but how's that going to affect the batter's eye if you put that in center field with the white lettering?
I was just
Playing competitive sports, baseball for most of my youth and early adulthood, that was one thing that we always wanted, was a black fencing in center field, so you didn't get the pitcher throwing the ball through a white background. How's that going to affect that? Because that is a liability for kids.
I'm waiting to hear, I don't know.
Sorry, I feel like I'm talking through the model, and I apologize. Sorry for that. It's quite a fantastic model there. So I apologize looking through. We had given consideration to that. The upper portion of this is mainly where the blue comes from. We do recognize that there could be some concern with that, with the white background. If it was in fact a concern from a batter's perspective, I mean, we in theory could just reverse it and it would be a blue background in the banner. It would lose that key piece of the wording there. But I don't know as if we've given strong consideration to that point. So I think that if we do receive approval, we would work through that. And if it was posing a hazard to the players, we would be agreeable to either not using it or using a different spacing with the essential components there.
Thank you, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, so you install it basically by tie wrapping it on. And if it doesn't work out, you cut the tie wraps and throw it away.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Familiar, a lot of college ballparks had that,
Yeah.
so.
So the sponsorship signage that exists and is in our town agreement, you see on the screen here. And all of those sponsors have come back except two, HC Salon and Day Spa and Giant Landscaping. So out of the 9 banners that we have in the contract, 2 aren't coming back. So certainly we would like to replace those 2 with another sponsor. New sponsors, boy, the baseball program has been busy finding sponsors, which is excellent, because Sponsorship money just means less money for registrations and less money for families. It helps all around, but, so some of the new sponsor banners you see here, different companies, some you recognize certainly. And the baseball program is looking for approval to put some of these signs, again, along the outfield fence. The goal is to keep them out there. Don't put them near the dugouts. Don't put them near the concession stand. You know, where people want to see baseball. They don't want to see banners. So it's a little, they're pretty innocuous, in my opinion, when they're out there. There's just a few others that they've gotten a hold of, so. Sponsorship is about what, Jason, about $300, $350, something like that? I don't know exactly.
Yes, that is correct, John. So the typical banner placement at one of the fields that we have used in the past is approximately $300, or I should say is $350. We do have a couple other sponsors, including Elliott Orthodontics, which have provided additional funds beyond that to allow us to offset our own individual costs for the banners, and actually contributed funds in addition to cover the cost of the banner themselves. So we typically, for any new sponsors or when banners, as you've seen, several of them listed here are faded or out of date, we replace them at our own cost. But some of the sponsors have awarded additional funds to cover the cost of the banner replacement as well as the cost of the sponsorship.
So that's a one-time charge?
So typically, it's covered for the banners or for the sponsorship funds, I'm
The
sorry.
sponsorship. The
So
sponsorship.
typically, our sponsors have been renewing them yearly.
Okay, so it's an annual sponsorship fee, and the
Correct.
banner would come down if they didn't sponsor the next year.
That's
Right.
correct, sir. Yeah, so we do run into the issue of potentially needing to reapprove new sponsors each year or remove sponsor banners for someone who may decide no longer to contribute sponsorship dollars.
Okay, I would think the sponsor would want to make sure they maintain the banner to keep it in good-looking shape
That's
instead
correct.
of asking you to replace them, but.
That's right. Again, each banner is short money. I mean, $50 gets you a banner. It's not big dollars. So that's really it, without killing it with time. I mean, that's really where we're at. It's kind of interesting that it came off of the covered bridge, because obviously from the baseball field down towards the river is where you don't want to turn it into a advertisement.
A big commercial
A
area.
big commercial sort of thing. You know, the playground is there and et cetera, so. We feel that, you know, this brings businesses into our community with sponsorships. I'm sure a lot of their kids play. And it kind of keeps it out by the bushes, way in the back, where it's not really obtrusive in any sort of way. And that's kind of it.
So if I'm not mistaken, there's currently 9 sponsors,
Yeah.
and you're showing pictures for 20. Are you asking to go up to 20 sponsors, or are you, in the handout I got, there's 20. I don't know which.
6, yeah, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's right. There's about 20, whatever the number is.
That's a big change
That's a big change, right,
from what you've got, and there's room
Right.
for those all along in there.
correct. So the limitation is foul pole to foul pole. So once.
There's a lot of room out there, I understand.
Yeah, there's plenty of fence room, of course, and then once we get to that point, we would have to turn sponsors away, or ask them to sponsor without a banner, which many of them would be willing to do. But again, we don't want to start curling in and turning the thing into, you know, professional sports stadiums that have more advertising than they do wall these days, right?
Right. Was there more to your presentation?
That's
or
it.
Anybody have questions or comments? Nancy?
I'd like to make a motion. I think I have the information I need. So I'd
Okay,
like
well,
to-
we can always talk to the motion as well, so go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to accept and expend the donation in the amount of $7,500 from Haywood's Ice Cream.
Wait, what number? Was it 3,500?
7,500.
75.
7,500.
I thought I heard you say 35.
I'm sorry, no, I said
Yeah, I don't know what you said, but that's what I heard.
7,500.
So that's why I'm trying to get it clear.
He's still in shock over the 450.
Thank you, give them that excuse. To be used for the purchase of a scoreboard to be installed at Bice Field located at 487 New Webster Highway, as well as updates outdated field, fence wraps and signage pursuant to RSA 31:95-B and Charter Article 8-15.
Seconded.
Okay,
And
so,
just to speak to it, I think the presentation is fine. Everyone knows that we've had banners there for a long time. Everyone knows we've approved the signage for a vet's very similar situation. So I don't think it's anything new, so it's just improving upon.
Correct.
Paul?
And just a little friendly amendment on the end, and approve the modifications to the contract.
And approve the modifications to the contract.
That was a motion made by Nancy and seconded by Bill?
Yep.
Okay. So here's what I'm trying to understand. We bothered in the past to put this contract together and have pictures included in it of all the signs that are out in the outfield, so that we know exactly who the sponsors are, and we're confident the town wants to be promoting these people at our youth groups and all that, our youth programs and stuff. And now you're bringing in 20 different signs. It feels to me like you're dropping a much larger advertising program out there. And then you made a comment about not wanting to put signs up around the stands where the teams are and stuff like that. Yet there's pictures in here of concession signs and stuff like that. So I'm trying to figure out how much commercialization we're wanting to put into this field at this point, and how much that's buying us. Are we gonna keep signs around the concession stand, and maybe, I don't even know where the
Yeah,
convenient MD says it's at Veterans Park, so it's not even
yeah,
appropriate here.
there's one Elliott Orthodontic sign behind the concession stand on the fence. I don't know how it got there, it was before my time, but it's fairly small, it's not obtrusive to the field of view in any sort of way. We could remove that if need be. What I don't want is a family is there watching the game, they have little kids that aren't as tall as the fence, and all of a sudden they can't see. Don't want that.
Right, so nothing between whoever could be observing
Correct.
from behind the batter's box or
Correct.
whatever, and, okay. And I know there was a lot of consideration over signage and different people and whether we want to be promoting those products in our youth programs. Like, there's always concern about Budweiser or something, and whether or not that should be at the high school football teams and stuff like that. Do we
Yeah.
have any
I don't know
concerns
that.
as to who the advertisers are, or we're
I don't
comfortable
see-
with
I
this
don't-
grouping, or?
I don't see a problem with anyone that I've looked
I don't have a problem. I mean, Tomahawk Tavern's brand new to the community. I'm very happy that they're advertising. The specialist has been in town for ages. Reed's Ferry, I mean, Sal's, I
Dana,
mean,
yeah.
these are all local businesses that are contributing to the MYA, and I think it would behoove us to endorse, you know, what these folks are doing and the commitment they're making to the MYA. So that's how.
Appreciate that, I just wanted to make sure we
That's how I would look at it, Mr.
vocalized it
Chairman.
here.
No, I appreciate it.
Any other thoughts? So we're gonna approve them to put up 20 signs along that back fence?
And that would become part of the contract, right?
Correct.
That's where I'm going, is we need to actually modify the contract, because
Correct.
it says specifically these signs,
Correct. And that's what shows in the contract now.
the
So
9
we'd-
that are there now.
We'd
yeah.
have to add it.
Right.
right.
Yeah, the thought is to do it via addendum until the summer, and then we'll roll
Okay.
it back together.
All right. Any other, are we good with that, Paul, or are you gonna,
That's why I asked for that friendly amendment at the end.
okay.
Are we gonna ask, are you gonna move the Elliott one from the concession stand, do you think?
We didn't plan to. It's so unobtrusive, but we can, if we like.
It's the only one that's
You don't have to on my
displayed.
account, but I'd rather not increase more of those
Right.
like that. Because I think it's good, your point of putting them on the outfield fence
Right.
is a good place for all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, you can't even stand back there. It's all
Right.
brush and
Yeah,
thistle.
so no, I'm good with that,
Yeah.
and the other is on, whatever the deal
Yeah.
is, yeah, I'm not, but let's not go anymore, I guess.
What were you gonna say, Paul?
I remember when they brought Elliott forward to be put there, it was because of a donation specific. Elliott gave money for that sign to be put there near the concession stand. They gave either additional money or they gave money for something. The baseball program brought that forward at that time because it wasn't just a standard amount of money that they would put for an outfield sign. They gave additional money. Similar to Convenient MD, they gave additional money to be at Vets Park and have their banner at Vets Park. So that's why they're the only ones really at Vets Park as Convenient MD. It's because they gave money for specific
Yeah, and
purpose.
I can see where, as long as they're paying an annual fee or something like that to support the programs, it makes
Yeah.
sense. I don't think we want to be encouraging people that are sponsors to buy a sign and have it up there permanently.
Right, and I don't know, I can't remember all the details, but I know they gave something extra to the program to have their sign put right there.
Right, so I'm gonna ask, like I'm on the town council, but the guy behind me, did Elliott Orthodontics give more sponsorship money than the others?
They did. Traditionally, Elliott Orthodontics has supplied a $750 annual donation to the MYA.
Okay.
Boy, that's
Awesome,
a good
thank you.
chunk of change for a little tiny sign, really.
Well, which is right up in front of everybody's face, but I mean, this,
Well, not really. I never even knew
Well,
it was there.
potentially. I mean, this scoreboard is going to be a great sign that people are going to be paying a lot of attention to. And-
Again,
and-
it's way in the right? It's way in the outfield in the far
Yeah.
corner.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll look like just another banner kind of along the wall.
Yep. Okay. So I'm good with that. We'll call for a vote if nobody else has any questions. All those in favor of accepting these changes to the MYA contract and the signage donation from Hayward's Ice Cream, as was stated in Nancy's motion and amended by Paul, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 7-0. Thank you. 7-0.
John, Jason, thank you.
Thank
for
you
what
all.
do, appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
great.
guys. I
Excellent.
appreciate your patience and
Great.
hanging out with us here.
Now you can talk about the bridge.
I
Get
never
the
even-
word out.
I never even knew there was a bridge in Merrimack, so I learned a lot tonight. Thank you.
And
Good night, Juan.
Good night, Ron. Please, yeah, a note.
It's now 10 o'clock and Lon Woods is retired for the evening.
Left the building.
So we're down to 6 members. We're going to try and plow our way through this so that we don't have to ask people to come back. So item number 2 under new business is the Ambulance Capital Reserve Fund account withdrawal request submitted by Fire Chief Matthew Duke. Town Council to consider Merrimack's Fire Rescue's request to withdraw and expend up to $157,000 from the Ambulance Capital Reserve Fund to replace and upgrade all 3 of the ambulance stretcher systems which are used to decrease injuries and provide a safer transition for the patient into the ambulance. But you're not Matt Duke, you're,
Assistant Chief Harris.
yes.
We put together a presentation here for- He's a professional. Let him go. Don't go away.
You have a button pusher with you.
I do, an assistant. Again, I say my name is Assistant Chief Harris. What we're looking to do is we're looking to
We have
replace our,
a free chair over there if you want to grab it.
Thank you. We won't be long, I assure you.
That's good.
we're looking to replace our 3 stretchers in our 3 ambulances
Uh-huh.
with a automatic lift system that, it's a rail system that brings the cot in and out. Also, the cot hooks to it. The cot is actually electric. As it comes out, it lowers itself down, so it makes it safer for people to take it off. Ergonomics of putting a stretcher inside and out takes you off of your STED system on your ergonomics. So you end up getting hurt. So what we've done, this does is it brings the cot out, lowers it down to the ground, so there's no lifting and putting it in and no taking it down. The system that we're proposing is a striker stretcher system. It's a rail system that actually brings the stretcher out on the rail system, lowers it down, thereby the gentleman or woman that take the stretcher and start walking. And the reason we want to do this is because it increases the employee and patient safety. By putting the stretcher on the ground, there's nobody lifting it on surfaces that are uneven, and makes it easier for us to move patients around. It saves on injuries, and the system will lift the patient approximately 850 pounds.
Video?
Yeah, put the video on. I'll finish my statement.
Okay.
What's happened now is, just prior to my coming here, you folks had an injury of one of the personnel, and the injury cost approximately a little over $200,000 in costs. This system that we're proposing would have eliminated that injury and thereby saving us $200,000. It is going to cost us $156,000, and I want to put the video on at the moment to give you an idea of what it does.
Oh. My fault.
Not so good.
How many's got one? No. 3 for all the ambulances. Yeah, you're right. That's quite a difference. Huh? Yeah, look at that. So you'd have to release.
The system, once it's on the ground, is stable. There's a button you push that unlocks it. Take it off.
You're welcome to narrate, because I'm not hearing her
I thought you
very
could hear
well.
the thing. I'm sorry. My apologies.
It's just, she's just going through the mechanics of it. Just, we wanted you to see how it worked, more so than the exact mechanics of it.
So when you load the patient inside the ambulance, does that, I'm assuming that locks in place so that's secure for the transport? I got
Correct.
2 nodding heads behind here, so.
Yes,
that is a
it
yes.
locks it all in.
Yeah.
What she's gonna do now is she's gonna place it back into the ambulance, the opposite way as it came out. It actually slides in, locks onto the rail system. Those two arms that were down the bottom are actually gonna lift this thing up. Once it pushes in, it locks the wheels. The lights turn green, and then once it turns green, the person pushes the button, and it's locked. It lifts the system up off the ground, and then it also pulls the legs up. At that point, there's nobody turning, twisting, pushing, and it's safer for the patient. They slide it in, it locks into place, and it can't come out. The system also has a fail-safe. If the system doesn't work, it all runs by battery and power in the machine. There's a fail-safe. If the power does not work, you can actually take this out manually and put it in manually. There's an override for the system. Patients are getting larger, a little heavier and so forth. Our limit is 850 pounds. The stretchers will lift that. The system will lift it. So what we're trying to do is we want to replace our 3 power stretchers with the power loads. We also want 3 new stair chairs. All of our equipment, the 3 stair chairs, are becoming antiquated, and basically we can't repair them anymore. They're out of their life cycle. We have 3 stretchers. 1 stretcher is a 2017, which we could use, but in order for us to bump the stretchers up to be able to use, it was more cost-effective to replace all of the systems. So by replacing all 3 systems, we end up with a warranty plan for 7 years. We're gonna buy the warranty plan, which eliminates us paying for any repairs to the system, to the stretcher, and to the batteries. The batteries have a life of about a year, 2 years. The batteries themselves cost between $350 and $400 a piece. And the Should have my glasses on.
You could look at this thing.
Yeah, I could. All the repairs are all done on-site. The Stryker company comes directly to us. Right now, the gentleman actually lives in Brookline, New Hampshire. He'll come out, do all the on-site maintenances, all the labor. It's all in no cost above what we're paying for here for 7 years.
The biggest thing that they forgot to say to the council on these is that they're transferable. They mount to the ambulance body, and when we buy a new ambulance, which is like every 3 years, they can take the mount out and mount it in the new ambulance. So we don't have to buy the system over every time we buy a new ambulance. We just have to pay for it to be transferred over into the new ambulance as part of this agreement.
As part of the agreement, we are, as he says, we're gonna have a system installed, and as we transfer it to the next ambulance, the system can be taken back out and moved over to the next ambulance. And a life cycle of about 14 years, I believe it is. Right? All right. So, trying to make it short. If you
Thanks.
have any questions, I apologize for the
Barbara?
Yeah, I just want to say, this is fantastic. You know, when you watch TV and you see them loading people into an ambulance, they make it look easy. It's not that easy. So, as far as I'm concerned, you've got my support.
Thank you.
Peter?
I'm seeing that there's 7-year warranty, so, after 7 years, is this, the life of this thing's done and we gotta replace them?
Most likely, the lifespan will be, the stair chairs are 7 years now. Currently, the stretchers are 7 years. They'll all be new for that time frame. And as we replace the ambulances, if that power load system is towards the end of it, when we replace the ambulance, it will be included in the new ambulance purchase as well.
Okay.
So we won't be buying them separately. As the cycle goes through, when we purchase a new ambulance, it'll be built into the price of the ambulance.
Okay, so about 7 years then.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's all out of the same fund, as in where an
Right.
ambulance purchase.
The ambulance revenue.
It's the same one.
Capital
Where it's
reserve.
given.
Finley?
Thanks, Tom. Paul, this is coming out of the ambulance capital reserve fund. Was this an anticipated purchase?
When we buy an ambulance now, we would be replacing the stretcher. The stretcher is about $18,000 to replace. So we budget that portion into the capital reserve fund. The portion that we wouldn't budget is the power lift system in it. But there is sufficient money in the ambulance capital reserve. By buying it now, because we've been budgeting $200,000 for an ambulance, the ambulances won't cost that much. So we'll save on that portion of buying an ambulance. We have one ambulance coming up to bid this year, and I believe either next year or the year after. We have another ambulance. So because of the way we purchase them, every 2 years we buy a new ambulance. So we would save on the stretcher.
No, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't gonna have a negative impact on our plans. Thank you very much.
But we're gonna take 157,000 out and save 18 on the next,
yeah,
18 each, but 18 on the next one. So are you saying we have 150,000?
Yeah, we have enough
Above and
money.
beyond what we would need
Yes,
for the next?
we have enough to purchase this ambulance plus do these power stretchers, yes.
And not impact the purchase of the next.
And not impact the purchase of the next ambulance, correct.
But we weren't planning on it, so we've been saving a lot more than
Well,
we
because
planned on.
yeah, because of other items that also get replaced in the cycle of when you buy an ambulance, like the stair chair, which was, I think they're selling, what, $7,500, $8,000 now? And then the stretcher was $18,000, so that's $25,000 that we had in the purchase that we've been buying, so already there.
You were saying that the stair chairs are worn out and need replaced as well, is that right?
Yes, that's included in this
They
also.
won't, they won't service or warranty or certify the stair chairs currently.
So are we asking to replace those now, or is that
Yes,
next month?
that's in the bid also.
That's in this bid.
In the 157?
In the 157.
Oh,
Yes.
I didn't understand that. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
And they'll all be in warranty, and if anything breaks on them in the warranty period, it's covered.
Presently, right now, we pay for a warranty for all of our stretchers. It costs us between $4,000 and $5,000 a year, just to maintain what we have now. We're looking to eliminate all of that, put it into one wraparound policy, and just pay one price for 7 years, it's done,
$4,000 to $5,000 a year to maintain our stretchers?
to maintain our stretchers.
I remember when we first started buying these stretchers, and they struck me as wicked expensive.
Haven't seen anything yet.
And, yeah.
The price of a bridge.
Don't go there. So is there any value in the stretchers we currently have?
Yes, there is, and we're also, in the bid, we turned them in, and they've given us about, I think it was $3,000 or $4,000 apiece.
Is that already included in this
It's
number?
already included in the bid.
Yeah.
It's
We're
already
turning in,
included.
we're turning in
It's
3
taken off the
stretchers.
price on the other round.
Because I thought when they first presented the newer stretchers, they were talking about, you roll them up to the truck, they hook on, one guy's holding them at the end, and the steps come up and you slide it in. All you're doing is replacing the fact that he's got to hold it because you're cantilever holding onto it by something that can handle 850 pounds.
What it is, a rail system actually comes out, it's like an elevator. It hooks onto the stretcher, lifts it up, and then you can just push the system right inside. Problem is
Not what I saw in the
ergonomics.
video. I didn't see an
It was.
elevator. I saw
No, it's
something
like
that
an
came out,
elevator.
dropped
It
it.
grabs it it lifts it up like an elevator would, and just pushes it right in, you push it right inside. So the stretcher is actually lifted up, and just push it in after that.
So currently right now,
Yeah.
it requires 2 people, one on each side of that stretcher, to pull the stretcher out with it weighted, so a patient on that, and then pushes the button, the wheels on the carriage come down, and then we pull them out. Now, that can be a one-person or a push-button situation versus 2 people holding the weight of that one person. So it's safer in 3 aspects. Each provider that's holding that stretcher now isn't holding as much weight, and the patient is being held by that machine and not the providers. So it locks into that, the wheels come up with that machine, and then it's slid in. So it's far less lifting on those 2 providers. So we don't have to lift it out, and then we don't have to lift it and push it back in.
It's stable as well.
And
I'm
it's,
sorry?
it's,
Stable as well.
It's stable on
Correct.
ice.
It's actually not, it's a different aspect, but this system mounted into the ambulance is safer during crash testing well. So God forbid there's an accident in that. This is far more stable and secure for the patient and the providers inside it than what we're currently at now.
Makes sense.
okay. Had another question, what happened to it? Okay.
You'll think of it after.
So the 850 pounds is patient weight, or is that the total weight with the stretcher as well?
I believe it's lifting weight of the stretcher.
Lifting weight of the system is 850 pounds.
Okay, so the
it's
stretcher
and-
is how much, do you
so
know?
it's the 700-pound lifting capacity of the patient. So the stretcher in the system is about approximately 150 pounds.
Okay. So we don't have too many 700-pound patients, so we're probably okay there.
Actually, during a demo, they put 2 firefighters on the stretcher at once. And they weren't the skinniest of firefighters. And it lifted with ease.
Although,
Paul would write.
It lifted with ease, and they were able, one person was able just to kind of push it in just push both of them into the ambulance. So, and it was sturdy because they were trying to, during the demonstration, they were trying to rock it, tip it, and things of that sort. So it's a lot more sturdier than having it. And we've had 2 serious injuries that guys, basically almost tore off their arms with. And if this could save those kind of injuries, it's not the workers' comp portion because we pay insurance for that kind of stuff. It's the backfilling of the overtime.
Oh, yeah.
Because these
Oh, yeah.
guys are out for
That's
6 to
correct.
9 months, and you're
Well,
covering
the fact that
everyone.
you got a sore individual out there
Yeah,
didn't need to be.
6 to 9 months of overtime to cover for that position while they're in recovery on this. So that's where some of the savings would make up, because then we wouldn't have to pay out the overtime to cover those worker comp claims.
So, and these are run on battery systems that are self-contained
Yes,
in
they
this
are.
program?
They're automatically charged in the truck, and the weight of the stretcher is 211 pounds.
211?
211 pounds.
Okay.
That makes
The-
my math off.
It's all right.
The battery, while the system's in, it recharges the batteries?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And
these are
there's
just-
2 batteries in the truck, one on the machine and one on a charge system. So if the battery does decide not to work anymore, they can swap the battery out, put another battery right in. And/or take it out manually if they have to.
And there's an override, you said, that allows you to, if
all
that
batteries
jams or
fail.
quits or
Yes.
something, you just release it and pull it out yourself.
Yes.
Correct.
Take it with 2 guys and take it off. Okay. Peter?
The battery's covered for 7 years?
7 years.
Okay.
3 batteries every year.
Because it's
Yes,
amazing.
they are.
Like, you know, your AEDs, they're a wonderful tool, but you realize when you have to replace the batteries on them, you're like, whoa, you know, the cost.
Well, and you said $300 or $400
$300
for a battery.
Yeah.
$300 or $400 a battery.
And after 7 years, when the warranty's over, the things are still valid. You said for up to 14 years, or
7 years.
14-year life, or?
It's 7. I don't
7
know-
years.
I don't believe
I
it's
read it
14.
wrong.
It's 7 years.
Oh, it's
My mistake.
7-year life.
7-year life.
7 years.
So individually, how much do each one of these lifts cost?
Divided by 3.
Well,
Divide 3
on
and
the order of 50.
about
I
$50,000.
thought that also covered the stair.
That's
the
right.
It does.
chair
Yeah,
lifts
stair
and
chair,
everything
which
else.
is,
The
So that's
system
why I'm
itself
asking.
is 24,000.
24,000?
Approximately 24,000 for the lift system, and then the stretchers are
Okay.
$17,000 or $18,000 a piece.
Okay, so
The-
for about 40,000, they'll give you a 7-year warranty.
The power load system is $64,743.30,
There's pros-
and the Pro X
You're right.
stretcher is $54,340 for 3.
Okay.
That's for 3.
Yeah, it's just equipment and everything now, you know, it's a great tool, it's gonna help you guys, but I just have to laugh, 7 years, you know, warranty, but that's the way it goes.
That's bumper to bumper. Anything that goes wrong with this thing whatsoever, rail and everything.
Medical equipment is exceptionally expensive. A Stryker bed, we were just talking about, a bed goes for $20,000.
Yeah, yeah. It's all
An
right.
ICU Stryker.
Is like $700, so it's what it is. It's certification and everything else that has to go with it.
This also covers the certification every year when they come out to test these things. So it passes the state inspection. That's also,
and this is all being managed by a guy out in Brookline?
no, he's the rep. He's our closest
He's our
rep.
local rep,
Yeah, he lives in Brookline, New Hampshire.
but this is a reputable medical equipment company that,
Yes, it is. Well-known
Okay.
company.
Just to let you know.
I appreciate that.
And it's our current system now, so
Yeah.
there's.
I know, you guys have presented on the stair chairs and things like that in the past, and sitting there, without being a nurse, without having that medical background, I sit back here and I wonder, how in the heck can we afford that kind of stuff? At the same time, I realize it's gotta have a wide variety of utilization capabilities. And our job up here is to question you guys and make sure we get as many of the public questions out as we can. So it's not like I'm trying to beat you up. I'm just trying to make sure we understand and get it all out as
Well, we
much as we can. And
Ask any question you want.
so there is concern that we have the money in the capital reserve, and that's been answered. So if there's no other questions, you already made the motion to approve this, right?
No, but I'd be happy to.
Oh, I thought you,
No, we hadn't done that far yet. I would be very happy to.
oh, it was the Bice Field. Never mind. Okay. If you want to make a motion, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like the town council to approve the request to withdraw and expend up to $157,000 from the ambulance.
Can you turn your mic on just so that,
Capital Reserve Fund.
you're going to have to
Thank
start
you.
over.
I'm going to have to start over. The town council, I'd make a motion to approve the request to withdraw and expend up to $157,000 from the ambulance capital reserve fund to replace and upgrade all 3 of the ambulance stretcher systems, which are used to decrease injuries and provide a safer transition for the patient into the ambulance.
Second.
And out of the ambulance, too.
In and out, that's correct.
So we have a motion on the floor. You want to add to that or comment? Any other comments?
I was just gonna say, and in transit.
All right.
It is past 10 o'clock.
So the motion was made by Nancy and seconded by Bill.
Give it to Barbara.
Give it to Barbara. Seconded by, I have a light on here, but my mic's on. Anyway, thank you. Motion was made by Nancy and seconded by Barbara to approve the withdrawal of 157 from the ambulance capital reserve fund for new stretcher systems. If there's no other comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0.
Thank you very much.
AC, thank you.
And number 3, the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund withdrawal request for gas monitoring equipment for the Merrimack Fire Department. Submitted by Chief Duke.
So these were in the budget process last year, or the current budget that we're in. We went through this budget process. However, because of the way that DRA made us change our ways with pulling money out of the capital reserve fund, that is why Lieutenant Bickford is in front of you tonight to discuss this, but they were and are budgeted in the capital reserve fund for purchase for this year.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you. Lieutenant Bickford.
Good evening, Council. Newly appointed Town Manager McCalley.
Soon to be.
Yes.
Not actually till May 1, but
Well,
It's buttering me up.
I can tell.
I'm not here to wax poetic like my predecessors.
That's good.
I'm a no bull kind of guy. What you have in front of you is what I've proposed as far as gas monitoring equipment. Like Paul said, it's already been approved. I'm here to ask to expend some of those funds. Simply enough, I'm looking to add new gas monitoring equipment to the new engines that are coming in. I think it behooves us to make sure when we put new engines in service, we put new engines in service with the equipment that's going to go with it. We do have one engine that's leaving, that's part of the purchase, the Sutphen, which currently has 2 of the gas monitors that I use. I'm going to move those to pieces of apparatus that do not currently have gas monitors. And then I have a bunch of smaller monitors, specialized monitors that can monitor chlorine gas, ammonia, and hydrogen cyanide. They're single gas monitors that I'm going to, each frontline engine is going to have a Pelican case with those monitors in it. Also, along with our gas monitoring equipment, every medical bag has a single gas carbon monoxide meter on it. Those are invaluable. There are many times that the ambulance is called to a scene for a medical, and for whatever reason, due to the acuity of the call, the engine company doesn't go, or if the engine company's tied up with something else, you'll have a couple of paramedics walking into a call, and it comes in as a general medical call. And having those meters on there is invaluable. I can't even tell you countrywide how many times those little monitors have caught a carbon monoxide problem. People get, the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning are very common to a lot of other things. Right. The flu, general malaise, things like that, difficulty breathing, all sorts of stuff like that, so people don't realize that they're having a problem. These help. We currently have some on our frontline bags. I want to put them on all the bags, on all the apparatus. So that's basically the gist. If you'd like me to break it down piece by piece, nut and bolt by nut and bolt, I can. I have it right in front of me. This is going to be a partial expenditure of what was passed already. There'll probably be some future purchases forthcoming, but this is kind of the meat and potatoes of it. And we're looking into some educational things. It's covered in our training. This particular stuff is covered in our training. It's through the state and kind of through our careers. But we're looking to bring in someone to come in and actually talk to the guys and give them a little better background on these monitors and give them a little better insight. And then furthermore, I think having all these meters on all the apparatus, we're going to avoid a problem like we had recently. We had a propane leak out in Bradford Woods, It required multiple pieces of apparatus. Currently, the latter company does not have a gas meter on it. When those personnel arrived on scene, they were directed to go monitor the problem and didn't have the ability to do so because they didn't carry that piece of equipment. If I'm allowed to expend these funds, that truck will now have gas monitoring equipment. If anybody has any questions, send them my way. I'll answer them the best I can.
Finley?
Thanks, Tom. Thank you much. I was just wondering, give me one more second, I
Absolutely.
apologize. You're requesting 24,000, but your page here shows
Right, it says
16,087, so.
Correct. This is the meat and, kind of the meat and potatoes of that 24,000. This was along with, in that line item, I'm sorry, in that CIP, there was some planning for some hazardous materials equipment and things like that. So when we get that together, we'll have to come back to expend that. We wanted to get this going when we'll have these 2 new engines coming in. We want to kind of get this equipment on hand. We want to get the rest of the apparatus outfitted, and we felt as though let's get this moving now. I've already had one particular meter that I had planned to replace this year due to age. It was 11 years old, and it finally gave up on me recently. So we've had to find some money elsewhere to kind of pay for that to take care of that.
So we're, okay, yes, he answered the question. Thanks.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Peter?
I think this is a great piece of equipment. Over the years, I watched you guys show up at calls. CO detectors, all sorts of things going off. You can't see it. I agree. You need this stuff. You should have it.
Absolutely, and it's not, and let me get a little more, I guess, slightly deeper into it. Each engine carries 2, what we call 4 gas monitors. And the reason we have 2 is because that allows us to send people to different levels of the building. You don't want to have just 1 meter, then you're limited to what you can do. These 4 gas meters monitor carbon monoxide, they monitor explosive gas, they monitor hydrogen sulfide, which is your sewer gas, and then they monitor the oxygen level. And people are, well, what do you measure? Why do you need to measure oxygen level? Well, sometimes there are things out there. What's up? Sorry. Sometimes there are things out there that will displace oxygen that we can't necessarily measure accurately. But the fact that we can recognize a displacement of oxygen will tell us that we have a dangerous atmosphere. So that's why that monitors oxygen. Also, the second meter on the engine is what we call a PID, or it has a photo ionization detector in it, and that allows us to monitor for VOCs, or volatile organic compounds. So those are basically stuff that you used to have in like paints and stuff like that. If that stuff is in the atmosphere, a normal gas meter, you might see some oxygen displacement or something like that. This is going to pick it up a lot earlier and a lot quicker. So that's why you'll see each engine has a kind of expensive meter and then a more expensive meter. The more expensive meter, and that's why we have those 2. They both do the same job. The more expensive one does a little more on top of it.
Barbara?
Are these under warranty as well?
Yes.
And so is the test and recalibration done by the staff?
Yeah, I'm your guy. A couple years back, Captain Dubril approached the council and was able to purchase an automatic calibration system that we've installed at Station 1. It's an expensive piece of equipment. I believe right now the going price is about $5,600. And not only does it calibrate our meters, but it also runs a diagnostics every time we run through it, which is when you were manually calibrating meters, you didn't have that luxury. So sometimes I can figure out a problem before it becomes a problem, and I can get on the horn to the rep and get a fix in place before it costs us an entire meter. Sometimes we can catch it a little earlier and expend much less.
Did you have something, Bill?
Yeah, I did. Lieutenant, thank you for your presentation. Can you just, if I'm in contempt, hold me in contempt. But when you stated that you sent a truck to Bradford Woods, that they weren't equipped with the equipment, did I understand that correctly?
The ladder truck does not currently have, they went out there, something like that we send to everybody for something like that.
Okay.
It was potential for a large gas leak, potential.
Okay.
The companies that were already on scene were using their gas monitoring equipment and were elsewhere. The scene became larger than initially anticipated. So when that ladder company got out there, those personnel had to find gas meters elsewhere. They didn't have one at their beck and call. They will soon.
Okay, so are ladder trucks generally, not saying Merrimack, but, within what's, amongst a variety of fire departments in the United States, do ladder trucks normally carry that equipment?
Well, Merrimack Fire is one of those, I don't want to say unique, but it's one of those departments where we're a department that kind of has to do everything. In Manchester, no. The rescue truck, they have a dedicated rescue truck that carries all these gas monitors, and they go to all those calls. The engine companies, the ladder trucks, don't even have this equipment.
Okay.
We don't have the luxury of having that dedicated company. We're kind of jack of all trades. Our ladder company, yes, it has a ladder on it, but it doesn't always operate as a true ladder company as it does in the cities. Medford, for instance, just speak your language.
You're being parochial, I appreciate it.
Yeah, to get, Medford, their engine companies, their ladder companies, they operate as engine and ladder companies.
Right.
So I would surmise in the city of Medford, the engine companies probably carry the gas monitoring equipment. They don't have a rescue, but the engines probably carry the gas monitoring equipment and the ladders don't, because they only go on particular calls.
Okay. And then you stated that one of the devices that we're replacing had been in existence for 11 years. So my question is, what's the average lifespan of these devices?
Not 11 years. That was a lark. We just happened to have one that somehow lasted that long. Generally, we find, and it's tough to put a number to it because of the atmospheres these are used in.
Okay.
And sometimes they're used in not only dangerous atmospheres, but pretty crazy situations. Unfortunately, over the years, we've had some that were inadvertently dropped and things like that because guys are climbing up and over and under stuff, and unfortunately, gravity happens. In part of my future expenditure, we're working on some sort of lanyard-type system to reduce that happening again.
Gotcha.
But generally, now I've only been intimately a part of this for the past couple years. Captain Duberly used to run it. He started bringing me in a couple years ago to help him, and then he transitioned it to me as a master firefighter, and then when I got promoted to lieutenant, I kept it with me. And so I would say 3 to 5 years, sometimes 7. The 11 was just, that's your, in your data, that's your outlier. Drop the high, drop the low, somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So 3 to 7 is probably safe.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best to lean towards the 7. Chief Duke and I are going to get together soon, and we're going to try to nail down a number so that we can keep up with replacement and things like that. As we expand our reach with these devices, we're going to have to kind of grow the program with it and make sure that every year we have a budgeted amount to handle wear and tear.
And I'm happy to hear you say that, because it's a simple tool, but, the tool saves lives.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, that's what you need it for. It saves lives, so.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you're gonna have a program in place so
Right.
that the council moving forward, we're able to strategically, budget for those types of items, like, is gonna be
We're
really
definitely,
helpful.
we'll definitely do our best. I'm not gonna sit here and make any guarantees that's certainly crazy that I can figure.
Well, we don't want you waxing poetic anyway, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Unlike yourself.
Unlike myself, yes. Yes. Well played, Mr. Chairman, thank you. LT, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. So you mentioned a couple of times that this was equipment for your new engines coming in.
Correct.
When are the new engines expected? I mean, it seems like we just got around to ordering them very recently.
There you
June.
go. That's
That's awesome.
we're-
Seems like
we're
last time
hoping.
we ordered an engine, it took 8 to 12 months to come in, but
Well, to not to step out of bounds here, but that, quite honestly, was part of I was also on the truck committee. That was one of our goals, was
to find something you could actually get in.
find something we could actually get in, but find a manufacturer that was going to work with us and help us establish a fleet model. So that's why we did what we did.
So the equipment for those engines is actually early if you buy it now, but you're buying additional stuff that backfills other things. And it
Absolutely.
gives you chances to train with it. And
Correct.
all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
Okay. Just trying to understand the timing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So are there any other questions for the lieutenant? No? Then we need,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the town council withdraw and expend $24,000, or do we
What?
want to do the 16, Paul?
16.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, let me reprise and rephrase. Mr. Chairman, I move that the town council draw and expend $16,087 from the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund for the purchase of new and/or replacement gas monitoring equipment outlined in the March 4th, 2021 memorandum by Matt Duke, Fire Chief, to the town council, and that furthermore, that the town council, that the town manager or her proxy be authorized to sign whatever documents are necessary to withdraw and expend.
Second.
motion was made by Bill and seconded by Barbara. Is that right? Okay. Just, I heard a sound over there. I wanted to make sure I identified the person. If there's no other questions or comments, we'll call for a vote on that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0. Thank you, Lieutenant Bickford.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you,
I
Lieutenant.
appreciate all of your support.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, for hanging in there.
Thanks, gentlemen, appreciate it. You all be safe.
Item 4, under new business, withdrawal request from the revaluation capital reserve fund. The town council to authorize the expenditure of $96,700 for the 2021 townwide reevaluation, of which $21,700 is to come from the I'm reading off of this list. It says the 2021-2021 operating budget. Maybe it's a 20 to 21 operating budget, and the remaining amount, $75,000, to be withdrawn from the reevaluation capital reserve fund?
Yes, so $21,700 would come out of this current year's operating budget.
The current year, okay.
And then the remaining $75,000 that we did have budgeted for this reevaluation would come from the capital reserve, the revaluation capital reserve. Shortly, very short, is that during the budget process, we were looking to put an extra $20,000 into this capital reserve fund to cover this. During the process, we decided that we do have some excess money in the 2021 current fiscal year budget to cover these costs. So that's why we left it the way it was.
And this is the cost for the presentation that Lauren gave us earlier.
Correct.
About the townwide revaluation that has to be done every 5 years.
Correct.
So is there a motion?
Move
to-
approval, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Bill and seconded by Peter. Did I hear you? Just that far ahead of you? Any other comments or suggestions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? That was 6-0.
Thank you.
Which brings us to minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the January 28th, 2021, February 11th, 2021, the February 18th, 2021 minutes be tabled to a date certain, March 25th.
Motion to table, made by Bill and seconded by Nancy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? 6-0. Brings us to comments from the press, who's not here. Comments from the public. You stayed here just because you enjoyed being here? You got to take that. You could take that, for crying out loud. You didn't have to stay for that. Comments from the council, but thank you. Anybody have comments from the council? Besides being bleary-eyed?
We're just speechless.
I
don't believe that for a minute.
I don't either. Oh. So that brings us to adjourning.
Seconded.
Motion by Nancy, seconded by Bill to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposing, abstaining? It passes 6-0-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Merrimack.